I don't want to get rid of that. This is a video I want to watch later. Mute that.
Is that Busty Asians 11?
Yeah, good guess. It is Australia Land Battle Total War Warhammer 3 Tournament.
Alright, Chief.
Fucking love the Total War Warhammer scene, dude. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Warhammer, honestly. It's like a small little niche competitive group where everyone is like just super into it.
That's awesome, man.
Okay. PDX, Discord. Oh, shit, I have to think of a joke.
Yeah, you do.
Going live.
You've done the one about how we don't start on time too many times, so you can't do that one again.
If I do it one last time.
You could make a joke about how, like, we have to have a separate show for the losers. Like, Nick gets his own show because he's a winner.
Kind of true, honestly.
Yeah, like, legit. Fucking, I think it was it Sam? I think it was one of the Frontiers guys hit me up and was like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. Like, cause after SoCal, like, as if I was on fucking suicide watch. Like, dude, it's gonna be okay. You'll survive this. And I'm like, I went 3-3, dog. Like, I'm not.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm emotionally stable. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm in fucking San Diego playing Warhammer and drinking beers. Like, we're chilling here. And man, was I drinking beers.
Yeah, my round 3, baby, with Jake.
Yeah. Jake, honestly, I told you this earlier, he wanted to concede. He didn't want to play that game.
Why? Because he was just bummed out by losing, or what?
He knew that I was going to kick his ass, and he was like, yeah, fuck it, I don't want to do this. This is silly. Let's go get some beers instead. And then we went outside to go to the place that was selling beers, but the place was closed, so he was like, fuck it, I guess we'll go play some Warhammer.
And he ended up winning, did he not?
Yes, he did, because I threw that game at the fucking wall as hard as you could possibly imagine.
Dude, hammered hammer / high hammer is the best thing ever.
It's really
it's
good.
Like
it's a good
both
time.
People kind of not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, my Reaper. She's so bad. She's so bad. As a data sheet, she's insane, but my particular one is terrible.
Why, just the whips?
Val cannot roll dice to save her life. And my opponent...
Spend that CP. God. Spend your 1 CP on reroll wounds instead of overrun to kill that rhino.
That's, that would have been a great idea.
Galaxy
it almost happened into Kenny as well. Kenny made exactly enough saves, and both of her toe attacks hit wounded, and he failed both of his saves on the Sangers. 4-up saves. And I still clobber that game either way, but it was about to get dicey.
Toe moment.
Yeah. God, I had to explain to frickin' what was that guy's name? Scooter, that the toe attacks are additional attacks.
Oh, that was that Turkey Wars?
He was so convinced, or maybe it was the other guy, one of the two Nits players I played. He was so convinced that you had to allocate one of your 5 attacks to the toes to get the 2 attacks.
What?
And I was like, is this 5th edition? Like, what? Anyway.
The Squig is not the Warlord? What?
All right, we got Nurgle Matthew in the chat. That's all we need to get the show started. You ready to go?
All we need to get going, boys.
You got a joke?
I'll put one together in the next 15 seconds.
Perfect. All right. Oh, and you're good. Okay, and oh wait, how are we doing the intro then? If it's just you and me, am I making the joke?
No, I'm making the joke.
Okay, so I'll say next line as well. I'll say the next generation.
Sure.
Or do you want to say both?
I'll say both.
You'll say both. All right, here we go. All right. Welcome to Best in Faction.
The Next Generation, a podcast where we have to have a separate broadcast for us losers.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Lucas.
And we are Nicholas today as he is off living the life of a champion while us chumps are out here picking up his breadcrumbs. So, We've got a whole lot of good stuff going on today. It is a big tournament review day. Last week we had Colton on, which was fantastic, talking about the local Portland scene. Great stuff coming up in the future for that. Just going to plug it right now as a reminder. What was it? The Rose City GT? Is that what he's calling it?
Rosehammer GT is
Rosehammer
April.
GT.
No, March 11th and 12th. It's early in March. Right. If you search the month of March in BCP and put Rosehammer, you'll be able to find it very easily.
It's gonna be a sick GT. It's at this like if you know Portland, you know the venue. But if you don't, it's this like basically abandoned mall. Still tons of like food for food court stuff, which would be great. But tons of space, tons of parking in a very centrally accessible area. It'd be a really good one to travel to. It's not too far from the airport, and Portland Public Transit is great. Anyway, I hope to see you there. Whatever the case, we had him on last week, and then we also, of course, had our boy Nick talk about his grand triumph at the Turkey Wars. But we were there too, so we're going to have this little bit of an episode to break down some of our performances there. And then also last weekend, I was personally not on the show because I was at the SoCal Open, put on by Frontline Gaming down in lovely Del Mar, aka, there we go, San Diego, which was a great time. So I'm going to talk about a couple of games from that as well. And we're just going to have a little grand old time over here, all right? This is not the tournament winners episode, but I think we've still got some very good stuff to learn from some of these games. So with that all said and done, how are you doing today, Lucas?
I'm good, man. I'm trying my best to keep time open for Warhammer games because work is getting busy and really stressful. Again, gotta love that quarterly cycle. But yeah, man, I'm doing good. I'm gonna have a really fun weekend. I got an RTT going to tomorrow that I think you're coming to as well. Is that right?
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, going to a little RTT to get some practice reps. But for today, I'm just sitting around, sipping on my lovely English breakfast tea and Mountain Dew thrashed apple. My stomach is very confused. Yeah, it's a vibe, dude. I'm having a great time. How about you? How are you doing?
Good stuff. I'm doing great, man. For one, I'm just sipping on the last couple drips of my Pure Over coffee.
And then not soda plus breakfast tea. You absolute rookie.
That's one word for it. I mean, maybe that's why I can't win a damn game of 40K. But I'm doing real good. Been having a lot of fun. Been playing around with some Mono GSC, which has been super cool. Been playing around with my forces, which has been fun. This week has been a nice little bit of decompression after the last 2 weekends in a row. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But man, that was a lot. So it's been nice to chill out a little bit. And yeah, looking forward to an RTT, a little slow down, a little local, not traveling for Warhammer. I'm never going to go a weekend without playing Warhammer. That's not real. But at least without leaving my own zip code is kind of the goal for this week. So good stuff. You guys talked about the balanced data slate last week, right?
Not really, honestly.
Okay, you want to talk about that real quick over here?
Yeah. So the balanced data slate dropped.
Supposedly.
And we didn't talk about it last week because there wasn't a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. In all seriousness, there were a few things that they changed that I feel like are going to have a big impact on armies. You can definitely give me your take on this, Tyler, but I feel like for the most part, the major offenders came out of it unharmed. I feel like the list that was most hit by the balanced data slate might have been Light.
No, it was Leviathan. It was definitely
Leviathan. Yeah, Leviathan and Light. What other ones?
Leviathan, and then Necrons got tapped on the wrist. And
yeah, they did not change at all.
Yeah.
I think the same kind of Necron lists are still going to be strong, even without the King having core.
100%.
But yeah, Leviathan as a like Warriors plus Harpies archetype is definitely donezo. And Light, I feel like as a troops and boats archetype, I mean, you might still be able to make it work. I genuinely do not know, but the difference of a threat range of 22 as opposed to a threat range of 28, like, I don't need to list all the reasons for you guys why that is like such a huge deal. Yeah, so I definitely feel like Light might be pivoting away from what people are playing when they're playing Harlequins.
I just don't see why you would play Light anymore.
Yeah, like
that same archetype can exist within Twilight. It loses basically nothing by being Twilight instead of Light. Like, it loses the fallback strat, which is nice. Don't get me wrong, it's very nice, but like the actual Light benefits itself, the Trans Hitman rarely comes up. And the advance and shoot is now not that big of a deal. It's just the boats, which, I mean, if they make maybe points drop Void Weavers at some point in the future, maybe then we start thinking about that.
And also, I think it also gives advance and shoot to the troops if they're on foot.
if they're, but not on the turn they get out of the vehicles.
Exactly. So like if you have a squad of troops that runs out and shoots with their fusion pistol still, I
If
don't
they're
know.
somehow with 8+D6 getting into 6-inch range, I
Just don't play
yeah,
light anymore.
don't play light. I think Twilight's, but I think the dudes in boats archetype works fine with Twilight, or you can do this more harpstery thing with the bigger troop lobs and stuff. Either way, Harlequins are totally still a very viable faction. I've heard a couple people, I know some of the Art of War guys were calling this a broadside buff, right? I really like that term. Remember when like broadsides lost core and Tau got better because broadsides were never really that good? Crisis suits were just better, so it forces people to play the less easy to play but better stuff and get better at the game, so the faction improves. I've heard some claims that Twilight was better than Light in the first place, which seems kind of crazy to me, but
I don't
I'm
think
not a
we have
Harlequins
enough.
player.
I don't think people have been playing light for 6 months for a reason. Is that's very easy to pick up and it's very effective, regardless of how much you want to argue that the last 2 weeks of Twilight results are outweigh that. I mean, you can if you want to. I think 2 weeks of like kind of like prelim data on whether or not Twilight is good isn't really enough to draw any conclusions. But I definitely think it has some legs, and we'll see more people play it. And for the record, Jack's list still has 5 loaded cars, so it's not like the dudes in boats archetype is gone. You just have to pivot a little
100%.
bit.
Definitely. I'm excited to play into that. That looks like fun. I think the like light playing into the light boats was just not. It wasn't it, man. That there when that thing works and you're an army that doesn't have a great answer for it, it is so not fun to deal with.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see them slow down just a little bit, even if it means they hit a little harder in combat. I think that's probably good for the faction. So that's a change. The levy change is obviously huge. I want to be clear here. There's not. I don't think there's enough coverage being specific about this. There is like no question rules as written that warriors, zoanthropes, tyrannid primes, parasitomortrex, neurothrope. Am I forgetting any synapse non-monsters? I don't think so. Those things are nothing anymore. They're not getting baby transhuman. They're not getting full transhuman. They're just, you wound them on 2s. Go for it. Because of the way that that was worded, which I think is a terrible mistake. But I don't disagree with it from a balance perspective. I hate Leviathan personally. I never play it. I do understand that my #1 score in the ITC is based on me playing Leviathan, but shh, don't worry about it. I hate them. Anyway, so go ahead and wound those warriors on 2s with glee. If your TO wants to rule against that, send them to me, because that's silly. It's pretty clear how it's written. But
Do you think there's any reason to take warriors anymore? I see Tyranid players tending to transition
100%.
them out of lists. I mean, I get their strength as like a little 3-man unit, but is there any strength to a warrior blob anymore, or is it just like a patrol killer / a little
absolutely.
unit?
I think that a big warrior unit in Behemoth especially is insane, because like they don't tank as hard, but they hit wildly harder, because they go from strength 8 to strength 9 +1 to wound. That unit hurts. Or in Kraken, when suddenly they're going the full, what is it, 15 in charge, and they're AP3 now, also hits super hard.
Yeah, the AP3 sounds, it's such a big deal, because one of the weaknesses of the Bone Swords is that AP2. So, and also the 2 damage to kind of get wrecked by -1 damage. But the big thing was AP2. So, like, most of the time you just kind of like bounce off AOC. Unless you had a big enough brick, and Kraken helps solve that problem a lot.
Yeah. I will say one of the ways that you can tell whether your Leviathan opponent is very experienced or not is how often they're setting up plays to use the Leviathan strat. The 1 CP, if I have 2 units in combat, they both get +1 AP, because that right there fixes that problem, but people just forget about it or don't set up plays for it, which was always nonsense to me. Anyway. I just realized I didn't put my list in the slides.
I didn't either.
I don't think you did either. I think people have seen the list enough time by
Yep.
now. But all right. So yeah, so those changes are great. The Reaper change I think is great. I think it's more impactful than people are making it out to be. It was very often that it was like 5, 6, 7 mortals, especially with exploding 6s, and that would just bail you out of some situations. Holding it hard cap at 3 definitely changes the math on what she's capable of. But honestly, it probably just means you're a little more realistic with what she does, and that's probably good for the game as well, or good for you as a player to tone down how nonsense aggressive people were being with her sometimes. So that's totally fine by me. I think the Necron changes, honestly, I would have liked a little bit more, but they're a like surprisingly beatable faction, I find, right? Like once you really know what you're doing, if you're willing to put pressure in the right places, I would have liked a little bit, but like I think that if they hit like all the secondaries in the way that I would have wanted them to, I think they would have dropped to like a 48% win rate faction pretty quickly. So I don't think it's a terrible idea to approach them with a bit of a light stroke, especially as it seems to me like demons do some pretty nasty things to them. So we'll see how those things shake out in the future. But I wouldn't go so quick to say that that was a massive miss.
I
The
definitely
big
would
thing
have
that
preferred they address the secondaries rather than nerf the data sheets because, Necron data sheets, they're some of them are solid, but as a whole, they're still operating on this ancient ass codex that doesn't really have a lot of teeth for the most part. For the
Mhm.
most part.
Yeah,
So I definitely would have rather them fix the absolutely stupid scoring that's going on as opposed to make the rules a little bit worse. But it is what it is. Like I'll definitely take a Necron nerf because they are a little bit silly.
100%. What I will say that I am a lot more up in arms about than the Necron changes is the lack of Tau changes.
True.
Oh my gosh. If all of these 14-year-old weebs could just stop taking Tau to tournaments because they're dragging the win rate through the frickin' mud. Oh my god, that faction is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And people are acting like it's perfectly balanced because it is a 50% win rate. Because so many Tau players are awful. They're awful, man. And I love getting to play into awful Tau players because, who doesn't love a free win? But man, when you play into someone who knows what they're doing with that faction, like, you're just getting tabled, dog. There's no two ways about it.
There's also a lot of Tau players that, might not have hopped immediately on the bandwagon of the most powerful units in the Codex. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people personally that have been looking for Sunshark bombers for an eternity. And,
Yeah.
Tau have some great data sheets, and probably the most defensive one, or one of the most defensive ones, is that stupid bomber. And if you don't have
100% the
two of
most
those,
defensive.
then, like, your list is a lot worse. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks, supply
Completely
chain
agree.
issues.
I will say, they look like they're in stock available on the GW website right now. So get them while they're hot. Only $80 each. Um, Anyway, but yeah, so there was that change. So that's enough balanced data slate talk. I think we're kind of on the same page here of like they're doing the thing. We'll see how it goes. I'm not quite as upset as the community seems to be in general, but also like I just generally don't get quite as upset as the community does in general. So I don't think that's that crazy. Anyway, let's jump right into the meat of it, talking about the pecking order, Turkey Wars, and FLG's SoCal Open. Start off. Did y'all do much of an event review last week? I don't remember.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about what Chase is doing up there in the venue, so no need to go over the Turkey Wars venue again. But tell
Awesome.
us a little bit about SoCal. What was happening there? Where was the
Yeah.
tournament? How
Yes.
did it go?
So SoCal made a couple of changes this year. There were rumors that they were changing venue that didn't happen, which is great. The fairgrounds are awesome. I will say there's like a downside of the fairgrounds, which is that if you don't have a car there and you want to get dropped off by an Uber, which is totally normal for a lot of tournaments where you got to go stay in a hotel, the drop off point is like more than half a mile from the actual venue because there's like a giant paid parking lot, and they have a tram, which is really great because they'll drop you off if you can. You get dropped off. You got all your stuff. Your tray, your backpack, your dice, or whatever, your case, and the tram will take you in. And that was great on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I come in, and round one starts at 9 a.m., and I get there at like 8:15, and I go over to wait for the tram, and the gal there who, is facilitating this, like, oh, sorry, the first tram comes at 9:10. And I'm like, what? It's dice at 9. Guess I'm walking. Uh, and then in the evening, because I stayed for the awards and stuff, by the time I left, they were done running trams in the evening as well. So I had to, so I had to walk like a mile and a half over the course of the day with my like 60 pounds of gear between. Because I also had my like all my traveling stuff, with my clothes and stuff in my duffel bag. It was a mess. So that was sub ideal, but I'm not going to pin that one on FLG. What I will pin on FLG is they're shifting a lot of their events to 2 days, which I really don't like. And this is not even from I want more games, I want the competitive single, like none of that. Strictly from a logistics perspective, I so radically prefer Friday, Saturday tournaments to Saturday, Sunday tournaments because getting Friday off of work or school or whatever is not a big deal. It's just not for most people. And especially if you're only traveling for one of these like once a quarter, totally doable. And then I get to fly out Thursday night, spend Friday and Saturday there. And then if I make day 3, great, I play on Sunday. If I don't, I spend on Sunday in San Diego and then take a flight back leisurely at like 11 a.m. and then get home on Sunday evening, have a couple hours, and then get up for work or school or whatever on Monday. That's great. When you do Saturday, Sunday with 6 rounds for a travel event, that means that I have to stay through the end of the day on Sunday, which means can't leave there before like 7:15. There are no flights that are leaving at like 10 p.m. That's not a thing. So I basically have to decide, do I play all 6 rounds or do I fly back Monday morning and end up missing a half day and then being completely discombobulated all day because I was already traveling that day, and that's what I had to do. It was a massive bummer. I had to reschedule a bunch of stuff to make it work. I do not like this change, FLG. I do not like it. And I'm sure that it's saving them a bunch of money. Or no, it's not even, because they're doing other events on Friday. They still have the same venue for this. I don't know what their thought process is. Some people like it, I suppose, but it's not for me. So I give a big thumbs down for Saturday, Sunday 6-round majors. That is a bad trend for traveling. If it's local, like if that were like down the block, I would love it. But when you're trying to attract a national crowd, not a fan. Also, there was a bunch of murmuring that FLG was switching to first floor blocking. I was so excited for that, and it did not happen. FLG terrain is still terrible. The chaos table, totally doable, but most of the other tables are really freaking bad. And having to stand 11 inches behind where I want to be is not fun. So thumbs down for that as well. Really wanted to see that. We played that at Turkey Wars. We played first floor blocking, and it was a little bit too strong because all the terrain is built for like not having that, right? Like there's a lot of really skinny L's that you can get right up into suddenly, and that was quite annoying. But I don't like that. I also am so tired of charge blocking. Like, can FLG please just adopt the WTC FAQ and let dudes live in walls?
Can everyone adopt that?
Yeah, it's honestly getting tiring, and I'm especially tired of people telling me it's not an issue. It matters in literally every single game. I have to have this conversation and determine how much of a jerk I want to be. It's basically gotten to the point that I don't care. I'll just do what my opponent is down for. I'll say, hey, we can live in walls, we can charge block, either way, just let me know what you want to do. And my opponents continue to be befuddled by this conversation and like take offense to it, regardless of which side they're on, because people are so convinced that one way is correct and is like the only correct way. I don't know if you had this experience, Lucas, but I feel like people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean can't charge me? Like I've ruled a distance, can't I charge? Or like, what do you mean live in the walls? If you can't,
I've definitely never had people be confused, but I don't know. I'm just personally kind of over it. I'm glad I'm playing Knights at this time because it makes it so that I have really no stake in this because my guys can't, standing 1 inch off the wall actually works against me. So I just say, you know what, if you want to charge me and live in a wall, that's totally fine. I'm not going to actually try to block you out. So I've been very lucky in that this whole fiasco has not really affected me for the last couple months while I have been playing Knights. But yeah, I think it's really silly. I think people should be able to live in walls, but I don't really have any good reason for that other than like it just makes the game easier and more fun to play. Like just let the people do the cool thing and let the charge happen. Like it's not complicated.
It's such a feels bad for players who don't want to do it right. It's such an annoying, like it's incredibly annoying with intention questions of like, can I just hand wave that it doesn't work? I'm with you. It's a mess. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about some games.
Yep.
SoCal overall, I give the event like a 3.5 out of 5. There's a lot to like. As far as FLG events go, it's a good one, but there's a lot to just not like about FLG events right now, and the scheduling in particular is a big thumbs down. Also, they radically cut down the amount of food. I understand that last year there was like a whole other thing going on that had tons of food, but apparently 2 years ago they had multiple food things. They only had one food option. It was a very expensive cart, and they didn't have a vegetarian option. The only thing they sold were tri-tip sandwiches and tater tots. So if you don't eat
Boo.
meat, you're having tater tots for lunch.
Boo. That's lame.
Yeah, that's not cool.
You gotta have
And
some
like
options for people. Not
yeah,
everyone eats meat.
yeah, and I get that like we're a very like ha 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 masculine like carnivorous crowd, but like no, come on, it's in frickin' San Diego. You can do better. Anyway, so I'm dropping it from 3.5 to 3.0 for that particular thing. That doesn't do with my performance, by the way. All my games were wonderful, my opponents were wonderful, but just come on, FLG, you can do better. All right, Lucas, looks like you wanted to show off your sick cards over here that you made.
Yeah, man. So these, this was kind of I don't know, it's not really a project, but a cool thing that I've been working on that some guys were helping me with, and it's getting pacts with the Dark Gods cards for my knights. Mostly just because I really like the pacts with the Dark Gods. In my opinion, it's the coolest part of playing Chaos Knights other than the Dread mechanic. So yeah, I wanted to like add a little extra flair to those on the table. So what I've got here for our podcast listeners are magic cards. There's basically a site, it's called I think cardconjure.com or something like that, where you can like upload a picture and then write in a bunch of text and it formats it like a magic card. And you can also, it doesn't let you do a backside, but I just like made another one that was the backside of the card. So you can, once exalted, you can flip the card over. You can like leave a little die on the card that tracks how many wounds you've destroyed, and then you flip it, and then it displays the text of the bonus effect. Cool as well. And I don't know, I just think these look really cool, man. There's like I definitely have some favorites. I think the Mirror of Fates is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
The Blessing of the Dark Master is also really cool. But yeah, I don't see a lot of Chaos Knights players using the pacts with the Dark Gods in any to any extent other than just like giving their big knight a defensive buff and giving their executioner some CP regen. And I think that's one of the great, that's like a real bummer because they are such a cool mechanic and they really do change the way that you play the game. I've had some players after games tell me like, if I had paid attention to that pact, I would have had such a better like chance of defeating you. And yeah, because like if you ignore one of these guys and what they're trying to do on a flank or playing aggressively with them, like you're just in for a bad time. So having the card helps me remember what's going on, helps my opponent remember kind of what each knight can do, and they also just look super sick. So yeah, I kind of wanted to show them off on air.
Very cool. These do look sick. And I gotta say, the Chaos Knights Codex might be one of the best designed codexes in Ninth, man. This book is fantastic, and it has been so much fun to both watch you enjoy and get to play against. It's really cool stuff.
It was very fun.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right on in. We got some pictures from the event here.
I think we're gonna. I forgot to remove these, but we're gonna talk about these later on a future episode.
Sneak preview. All right, so we're moving on into round 1, Death and Zeal. And just a little heads up, Lucas is going to go through his 5 rounds of Turkey Wars. I'm going to do, I think I've even lined it up correctly, that it'll be 3 rounds of Turkey Wars and then 2 rounds of SoCal, just so that I don't try to cover 11 games in a day. So I just pick some of the highlights. So we're playing Death and Zeal. I think this is people's preferred between the two, between this and Conversion. I think people tend to prefer this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the the 2 points for flipping an objective, 3 points for killing a unit.
Yeah, I think you can also get 2 if you just kill a unit, but yeah.
Yeah. Kill or take or both for 2 or 3 points. And Lucas is running into our boys, the Necrons. And as I guess I am the resident Necron expert here, I have more Necron games than Lucas does. All like 2 of them.
2 of them, yeah, bro.
All right, he's running double Overlord, which is a choice. Double Techno, double Chrono. The King himself, of course. 2 Reanimators, best model in the book, changed my mind. A full 2x20 Warriors, 3x3 Scarabs, 3x2 Cryptid Thralls, and 3 solo LHDs. This man is playing Release 9th Edition, and I'm here for it. This is awesome. Anything exciting happen in this game, Lucas? I'm seeing a score sheet that didn't quite make it past turn 2.
Yeah, dude. I went first on Death and Zeal against a Necron list that doesn't really have any melee. Like the king can punch, and that's basically it. So I just deployed on the line and went first, and he kind of shuffled around with his pregame move. And then on turn one, I killed like 35 warriors, both reanimators, two of the Locust heavies. Yeah, and then like he tried to focus down the big knight, and she was exalted at that point, so he did like 6 damage to her, and then I took my second turn. So yeah, this was a game of like, sure, the Necron secondaries can't beat everything, you know. It definitely won't beat Chaos Knights going first and tabling you in 2 turns. So fair play to my opponent Connor. Like he's definitely playing the. It seemed like he was playing the archetype he wants to do, which is like the cool warriors reanimating everywhere and like being super tanky. Which is, I wish that was a better archetype for Necrons because that kind of is what they are in my head. But yeah, he played super well, and he took I mean, like he took a beat down like an absolute champ. So big respect to Connor. We had a fun game, but just honestly nothing he could have done at all, and not a lot to take away from this game.
Cool beans. All right.
And here we are with me lined up on the line against the Necron Legion, dude, about to Zerg rush him.
I absolutely love these objective markers, dude. Is this like from this guy's team, or do you know what these are from?
They're just cool AdMech objective markers that because he also plays AdMech, like I guess he's
Gotcha.
on the robots or something.
They're this kind of like chibi vibe. They're super cute.
Yep.
And man, big shout out to Bird. His tables look like these. So, by the way, I'm sure I'll mention this in the last one, but a lot of these tables and terrain are provided by Jason Bird. He and is it Chase? Chase is the guy's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He and Chase are good friends, and they collaborate on a lot of these events. And like, why have 2 sets of 100 tables when Bird already has 1? So awesome to get to use them. This is his lava set. I think it looks sick.
And it really looks sick, and not the most practical, but like it gets the job done, and it looks super cool.
Yeah. I think some of these, like this middle base, you cut some of these middle ones here. They're like there's enough room to kind of like it. You know, it keeps you on your toes. It's definitely not a melee friendly table. It's a little more shooting friendly, but it's playable. There are much worse tables out there. I'll take this over the Cathedral any day of the week.
True.
All right. Very cool. Okay, so I, by contrast, did not get quite the layup that I was that you always like to get round 1. I got to play into Creations of Bile, which, if y'all remember from our recent episode covering, was that Harbor Heresy? Was that the most recent one? Mm-hmm. Where Zach Nelson ran straight through me and then Nick with his Creations of Bile list. I was ready for some revenge. I got a Sporocyst locked and loaded. Oh, we should run through lists really quickly, just in case people haven't been following.
Sure.
You want to go first because we just talked about your stuff?
Yep. At this event, I was playing Desecrator with Blessing of the Dark Master, the Aura of Terror for the harder leadership checks, and +1 attack reroll once to hit, and she has the 4-up Invuln Relic. I've got 6 Chain Cannon Fist Stalkers. One has the Dog Hat and the Feel No Pain upgrade, and the other one has the how did I have it? He had the Aura of Corruption, so the Nurgle Aura of -1 Strength becomes -1 Toughness. I have 2 more Stalkers with Sword and Meltagun. One of them had the Beguiling Majesty. I think I might have flipped the Nurgle in this Slanesh one there, but I think she has this Beguiling Majesty, so -1 to hit and wound in combat. I've got a Carnivore with Blood Shield, and I've got Executioner with the Mirror of Fates and Ignore Light Cover and Hit Mods Relic.
Sweet. Lucas has talked a lot about this list in the past. If you want to hear more about the details, check back some previous episodes for some deeper dives. Similarly, I'll give you the quick once-over. I'm playing Forces of the Hive Mind, so NIDS and GSC. I've got Behemoth double cover for the NIDS and Formed Emperor for the GSC. The Behemoth double cover is a Flyrant with Reaper, a Neuro with Barb, and Direct Guidance. And then only 2 HQs. Troops are 2x3 Warriors, and then a squad of Gargs. Elites, I've got Deathy with OBSEC 5. I've got 2 squads of 5 Tyrant Guard with Adrenal Glands, mostly Scything Talons, 1 Lashbone each. Squad of Venoms. And then Fast Attack is a squad of 5 Raveners. Heavy Support's a squad of 3 Biovores. I think there's a squad of Venom Throps in there if I didn't say that earlier. Then I have a Sporocyst. And then for the GSC, I have a Magus with a Familiar. I have 2 squads of 5 Acolytes, 1 that deep strikes at 3 inches, and a squad of 10 Acolytes with 4 Drills and Traps sprung. So that's what's going on there. If those things don't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. I'm playing Bugs. He's playing Knights. Check for previous episodes for deeper dives. So I'm playing into Creations of Bile here, ready for some revenge. The big change since playing Creations of Bile last is that I dropped my Broodlord, brought in that Sporocyst, and a couple of, what else did I get for the other points? I don't even remember what else changed with it, because I also get 25 free points out of that. Oh, I pushed some things around and also picked up my third Biovore. So I have way more mines than I did in the past. And that is going to prove to be incredibly useful in this game. So, you want to walk us through this Creations of Bile list, Lucas?
Sure. So this is a creation of the Bile, I presume, battalion. We've got 3 HQs. We've got the Nurgle DP with the our friend group is lovingly dubbed and
Lucas, your audio is going kind of wacky. Is your mic connection good? Lucas is muted.
Hello.
Oh, that's so much worse. Plug it back in. Oh, I think you just had to readjust your levels. You might be good now. All right. Stand by. If you're listening to this on the feed, you're not, because I definitely remembered to fix this and edit it. But if you're listening to us live, apologies, as we were having mild technical difficulties.
How's this? Hello?
That'll work. All right, so walk us through this Creations of Bile list, Lucas.
Yep. So we got 3 HQs, and it's in the battalion. We got the Nurgle DP with Galax the Decayed. Our friend group has dubbed this man Papa Fuck because he does fuck, and he slaps.
He does indeed.
We got the Dark Apostle. We got a Master of Possession. We got 2 squads of Cultists and 2 squads of Legionaries. Squad of 10 Terminators, 2x5 Possessed. 5 Bikers with the Black Mace, 5 Dwarf Talons, and Abaddons. This is a creations list that is gone with the Terminators. A lot of folks are dropping them in favor of more meat because they're just so expensive. But yeah, seems like a really solid list, and definitely scary with all the fight on death, given that most of your damage comes in melee. How'd this game go?
Yeah, this was an awesome game. This, by the way, his name was... I like to shout out people, especially when they're such awesome opponents. This was Josh. Josh was super solid. His stuff was real nice. The Black Mace Biker Tech is something I had heard about, but I hadn't seen in person. Do you know what the Black Mace does?
Nope.
I don't either. Let me look it up real quick.
Why don't you? I'll look it up while you tell us.
You want to look it up while I talk
yep.
about it? All right, cool. So I unfortunately did not grab a picture. I only have pictures of the games that we're not playing. So this was super interesting. One of the things that I always say about this list is that the list that I'm playing is that my army is basically the Hive Tyrant, Death Leaper, and a whole bunch of support pieces. And this game felt like a really big example of that. Something I've really gotten in the habit of is that top left flank in your 5 objective missions gets the Sporocyst, 3 Warriors, and Death Leaper, and that's it. And those 3 units generally hold down that flank without problem. Like I said, we're playing first floor blocking, so that's especially nice here. And the play is to put a Ruin on that top up left objective that blocks the Sporocyst and also has over an inch of objective still available on it. So Deathy runs over there, toes on the objective. The Sporocyst pumps out 6 mines that surround the Death Leaper, and then the Warriors waltz up to support on turn 2. And what that means is you can't shoot the Death Leaper because he's behind obscuring, and if he's not, he'll be outside of 12, and he can't be targeted outside of 12 if he's touching terrain, and you can't charge him because he's surrounded by spore mines. Not just because the mines will blow up in your face, but because they literally prevent you from getting within an inch, and they're also behind the wall, so they're also not getting shot at. This is a really tough nut to crack because he's OBSEC 5, and getting 6 models, or at least 5 models with OBSEC onto my objective on your turn is a little bit easier said than done, especially while staying outside of mine range, where I could very easily just kill 1 or 2 of them on your turn, and then you're in trouble. So that looks real good up there. Meanwhile, onto his flank, he sends a squad of Possessed and says, that looks good to me. And moves all of his meat up into the middle. He ends up going first here. I say, all right, crap, I got to do some stuff. I'm not ready to collapse yet. It's turn 1 because he went first. But the only OBSEC he has on the center objective is the 10 cultists. and then he's got like one Terminator touching the objective. So I say, all right, I hate doing this, but I gotta do what I gotta do. I send in the Raveners, they kill the 10 cultists, and they move block the bikes to prevent them from getting all the way down. And they stand on the objective, which, you know, you love trading 5 Raveners for 10 cultists, but that's kind of how the game works. Meanwhile, the Reaper Flyrant runs over, kills the possessed on his objective, and bounces back. I will say, something that I've really gotten in the habit of with Bile that you just got to know how to do if you're playing Nids, especially with Reaper, is to make sure you're putting Paroxysm on the unit you're going to kill with the Reaper to prevent them from doing a ton of damage back. My Reaper ran over, smote and screamed, charged, did the mortals on the charge, so there were only 2 possessed left that she then obliterated, and those 2 possessed did like 6 wounds back to her with -1 to wound, and I was like, alright, Chief, that's fine.
Good lord.
Yeah, so she jumps back anyway. I position with the Ravener move block, he's not getting anybody into the Tyrant Guard that are protecting her, and he doesn't have any guns, so they're super safe. So that's all fine. And then we go over to his, and I've taken him down to a 4, as you can see. Yeah, he gets a 4. He got it. Did he get a round 2? Yeah, he gets a 4 on round 2. So he gets a 4, and he says, all right, you know, bring it on. I'm going to take some more ground. And then immediately rolls a 1 for Illusory Supplication. Which is like, ooh, that's a problem. His Terminators, they do have the Black Rune, which is really good for them. I played it as someone who didn't later on, but he does. So they're still fairly durable, but that trans-hitment is a really big deal into an army with so much hitting on 2s, roll 1s as mine does. And he said, screw it. What else am I going to do? I'm going to hold the table. So he tries to move up. And man, I'm just like jumping up and down. I'm smelling blood in the water. It's time to go, boys. Like we're gonna collapse hard. We're gonna throw the Reaper, both squads of Tyrant Guard, and we're just gonna go in and mess up those Terminators real bad. Take a little bit of damage back, but that's just kind of how it goes. The Tyrant Guard are actually not that vulnerable to his dudes. I'm also going to drop in the Drill Squad. They're going to run in, and they're going to base a whole bunch of dudes. So he's got to be real funky in how he does his fight on death. Tyrant's just getting within an inch of one guy. This plan is flawless. We're just going to murder everybody. And then my Tyrant Guard fail their rerollable 4-inch charge. Cool. All right, well, that was great. And then my other Tyrant Guard hit their 4-inch charge on a 4 exactly. So only 3 of them are getting into combat because the walls are awkward. And then my drills roll 0 6s and bounce incredibly hard. And I'm like, all right, cool. So my Hive Tyrant is standing with her tail in the wind. The drills are getting eaten for sure. And I don't like this. This looks really scary. He hits back reasonably hard and is like, all right, Black Mace. His bikes are going to drive right up to the Reaper and she's going to go away. This is going to be great. He lines all his stuff up, gets everyone in the right position. Abaddon's going to go punch a bunch of Tyrant Guard. He's doing his thing. And then he bounces back. Did you pull up what the Black Mace does?
Bounce. Yeah, the Black Mace is a strength 6 -2 3 damage weapon that spills damage. Yeah, so in theory, very good for killing hordes. And it's strength 7 in Creations of Bile.
Exactly. It's wounding the Tyrant on 4s and it's flat 3 damage and it's a bunch of attacks. It's plenty scary, but it whiffs real hard. And suddenly my Tyrant is like, wait a second, I'm still alive? Delete all of the bikes. All right, who's next? And of course, they're not fighting on death because they already fought and failed. So that was crazy. Meanwhile, on that upper left flank that I told you was so well protected, if you didn't believe me, believe me. Dude sends over 5 possessed, 5 legionnaires, and Papa Fuck, that demon prince with the incredible axe. And I'm like, all right, cool, bet, let's make it happen. He can't take the objective from me immediately, so I still get my 8 points on turn 2. And then on turn 2, I run out, and I'm like, all right, cool. Death Leaper, with a little bit of help from some chip shooting, kills the 5 legionnaires and says, I'm holding this objective, fools. No obsec for you. And I whittle the possessed a little bit. Papa Fuck goes into Death Leaper and does not kill him.
Oh my
because Death
god.
Leaper is a Chad. And by a Chad, I mean he's -1 to hit and has a 4-up invillain and 7 wounds. So, like, it's not that crazy. I think, he was, like, 1 on... No. Well, it's crazy he took 0 damage. He should take 3 or 6, but he took 0. Because he's a legend. And then Death Leaper's like, all right, well, I got knives for hands too, brother. And uppercuts the Demon Prince, knocks him down to, like, 3 wounds.
Holy cow.
And then on my turn, because that was on his turn, obviously, to charge me, my turn 3 rolls around. And the mines just float out from behind the wall and obliterate that Demon Prince. And then, here's the fun part. He comes back on a 2+, and there are more mines within 3 inches of him. So it's not entirely clear to me. I would need like a ruling on this, whether coming back to life counts as being set up from reserves kind of thing, which counts as having moved. I don't really know if that counts as finishing move, if that should trigger Spore Mine explosions. It doesn't matter, because if he doesn't do that, if it doesn't, they are still within 3 inches of him, and then on his turn, the moment he moves, they explode, because his path starts within 3, so it has to go within 3. So unless he wants to stand very still and then shoot them with his lack of guns, like, the dude is dead either way, but we just agreed to say, let's just say that standing him back up counts as moving, and he dies right then because it was funny. What's also great, though, is that in the process of doing this, because he comes back at the end of the phase, the Spore Mines blow him up in the movement phase, and then Death Leaper moves toward the middle in the movement phase, and then he shows back up exactly where he was, and Death Leaper was never in combat, functionally. Right? He never had to fall back. And he has to show up next to the mines. Because if I stay where I am, he can try to, like, shimmy out of engagement range of me, which will get him out of the mines maybe, but just move. So that was awesome. And he runs in, and he's like, all right, like, this is going great. We're going to go punk a Dark Apostle, and, like, Supplication's going to be gone for the rest of the game, and we're going to be fine. And I do 0 damage into the Dark Apostle.
Is this just a game of no one kills anything?
Basically. Except for Abaddon. Abaddon kills some shit.
I mean, it's pretty hard for him not to.
Yeah, Abaddon walks over and is like, Tyrant Guard, go to hell. Tyrant Guard, go to hell. He's literally killing a squad of Tyrant Guard per activation. And I'm like, all right, man, whatever. That's cool. So things are getting nutty. Like I said, the drills ended up... But because I've killed off his cultists, those acolytes are able... Or not the acolytes, Deathy getting onto the center objective when he charges the Dark Apostle, even though it doesn't kill him, the Dark Apostle almost kills Death Leaper back. It's very funny. Even though he doesn't kill him, he's still OPSEC 5 on the objective. That's still my objective, because the Legionnaires are dealt with, and the cultists are dealt with. I deep strike 3 inches on his backfield objective at some point, which I think he may have screened me off the objective, but I still drop back there to R&D and behind enemy lines. And I have this happen so often where 5 acolytes fight 10 cultists. What I have discovered is if the acolytes are behind a forest, which, so often CSM players are terrified of difficult ground, so they'll park their forest in the backfield, right? So the acolytes can drop behind it in the corner. If the acolytes are in the forest, the acolytes win that fight. Because the cultists shoot, hit on 5s, wound on 5s, I have 5-up saves, don't do much. The acolytes move up, they charge, they kill a bunch of cultists. Like the cultists may start respawning and it'll take a minute, but the acolytes tend to win that fight, which is so funny to me because they're such a 5-man trash unit that costs 45 points. But anyway, they're doing their thing. I might even drop 1 flamer into that squad just for that exact situation to make killing 10 cultists a little easier, maybe 2. I don't know, I'll think about it. But that was sick. So we're going back and forth with bouncing. Abaddon's killing everybody. My Spore Mines are doing pretty minimal damage other than killing off all the stuff at the top left. I'm not really able to get them to the Terminators at all because of the way my terrain is positioned. It's just too far away, which is fine. I like where my terrain was. Also, I never actually kill the full Terminator brick. I get very close. What is it? Is it Tyrant Guard or Venomthropes or Warriors? Yeah, I think my second squad of Tyrant Guard who fails their charge runs away from Abaddon and charges the Warp Talons on his safe-ish objective. And the paroxysm on them is great because they're only strength 5 in creations, so they're wounding me on 5s full rerolls because I'm toughness 6, and then -1 wound puts them at 6s. So they don't do anything to the Tyrant Guard, and the Tyrant Guard just get them. The 5 possessed do eventually take that top left objective, kind of. They kill the Warriors, and Death Leaper has abandoned ship, but the Spore Mines do then kill them, and then no one is on it. and then I just pick up my Venom Thropes and put them over there. I know it was sticky, but he had unstickied me. Um, yeah, so my Venom Thropes they encircle the prey on like turn 4 and then drop back down there turn 5 as I went second, and that grabs me an 8. At the end of the day, through all of this nonsense, I got 85 and he got 71. Very tight game. You'll notice that all that differential is in the primary base, basically 42 to 30. My behind enemy lines didn't work out so well this game, which is fine. It's a hard secondary to pull on quarters, especially when we're going to all fight in him. But I was denying enough of his primary that it didn't matter. And if he wanted to bring the fight all the way to me, then I get my behind enemy lines points, so I don't really mind that as a take. Yeah, worked out pretty well.
Nice, dude. Cool. Looks like a fun game.
So yeah, it was a ton of fun. He performed super well. Yeah, it was nice to get a little revenge on the creations of Bile. Cool. Moving on into round 2, Tear Down Their Icons, better known as Bomber Mission. And Lucas is playing into this boy with Yannari and Dark. I'll run us through this list real quick because I am a little intimately familiar with it at this point. What's cool is that he's got a Yannari Outrider and a Dark Harlequins Patrol. These are not Yannari Harlequins, which is just really interesting to me because he doesn't have the slots. Because this dude has a bit of a hard-on for fast attacks. Oh my gosh. He's running the Incarn, of course. He's got 2x5 Rangers, a squad of 5 Fire Dragons, squad of 5 Banshees, 3 squads of 3 Shining Spears, 2 squads of 3 Shroud Runners with Scat Lasers, and a squad of 3 Wind Riders with Scat Lasers as well. So much speed. And then a pairs of D-Cannons. And then the Dark Patrol has got the Shadow Seer, 2 squads of 5 troops, and 2 squads of 2 Skyweavers. That's the bikes, and he is running them with Zephyr Glaives for a bit of close quarters combat. Tell me about this game, Lucas.
Yeah, it was a really fun game. This is my first time playing against the Incarn in recent memory, at least in the last year or two, I think. So, yeah, definitely a really fun game. And the first thing to notice here is that other than the Incarn and those squad of Fire Dragons and then maybe the D-Cannons, he basically has no anti-tank. And that's kind of the first thing I check for obvious reasons when I look at an opponent's list is like, at what speed can they kill my knights if we're fighting all the time? And I kind of determined that speed is not going to be very fast. Like, he can definitely fire and fade the D cannons. He can get them into a tricky spot where they can shoot multiple times. But like, that kills maybe like one knight. The Fire Dragons maybe kill another one, and then the Incarn kills another one. Killing 3 knights a turn is totally a rate of attrition that I'm willing to suffer. The one issue is if the Incarn gets into a spot where I can't retaliate against her very effectively and then gets to kill stuff for multiple turns in a row. That can be really challenging. So this was my first game kind of trying to figure out how the Incarn worked, and I did a pretty poor job of managing her. But it ended up working out. Basically, what he did was he went first, and he moved some of his... What he has here is basically MSU bikes plus D cannons plus the Incarn, and then scoring. So what he does is he moves these bikers up to like get points, move block the opponent, be a nuisance, shoot a little bit, and then once he sees a good opening, when an opponent kills a squad of bikers and he sees a good opening, he'll teleport the Incarn to them and try to make something happen with that. That's what he did on turn 1. He moved up 2 squads of Shroud Runners. I kind of positioned to a spot where I could like try to get some beads on the Incarn if and when she teleports in. The Shroud Runners apparently are pretty hard to kill when they're in cover. So it took me a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, and I ended up just barely killing them, and then he teleported the Incarnate, and I was like, oh shit, it's going down. But the good news is that he, well, in my opinion, he made the wrong choice with the Incarn. When you don't have a lot of tank-killing firepower, you want to remove the number of units the Chaos Knight player has, or knights in general. It's really annoying when I get to like turn 2 or 3 or 4, and I maybe like, let's say on turn 3, if I look at my board and I've got like 1 big knight and 2 or 3 little ones left, that's the situation that really scares me, as opposed to getting to turn 3 and I have like 7 armigers left. Number of unit count is really important for my army, and he made the decision to go after the big knight, which I think is not only risky, but also just the wrong call flat out. So he went into the big knight, cast the +1 to wound spell. So, I mean, he's going in hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s, but I don't get the invuln. But like, it really just depends how many ones he rolled, and he ended up rolling a couple more than he should have, and I used -1 damage. So the Incarn does like 8 wounds to the big knight, and then luckily he kills another knight on a flank, and so teleports over there and dodges my my clapback. But that kind of set the tempo for the rest of the game. Of on turn 2, the turn where he was supposed to like rush out and do a bunch of damage, he killed 1 armiger. And then I just started like pressing forward, and I didn't really care what I shot as long as it was stuff. On that second turn, I focused down the Incarn immediately because she's in the open. I think I used the War Dogs, get 6s to hit, explode against her just to make sure she went away. She died after like 1 or 2, not 1 or 2, but like maybe 3 or 4 War Dogs. She's not that tanky at the end of the day. And then I just started bursting down squads of bikes as fast as possible to try to make the game a blowout. It definitely was not. He did a great job of just continuing to get his points. After he realized he couldn't kill me, he was just like, I'm just going to get as many points as I can and try to stay alive because I know I'm not going to kill you now. And he did a great job of that. The bikes are really good at that, especially the Shining Spears. Shining Spears are pretty cool. They because that Exarch is really all they need to do a large portion of their damage. I was very often, he was using Fate dice to keep them alive on that 5-up invuln. So I'd, charge in with my War Dog and kill the 2 basic guys, and the last guy would be like, pass, pass, pass on his saves. And then, that guy would slam the War Dog back for 8 damage and then fall back and charge the next turn, slam another guy for 8 damage. Yeah, they were hit really hard because they're they're under full starting strength, so they get +1 to hit from Ynnari. The Shining Spears have all sorts of cool buffs for charging, and then there's one guy that has a relic that's like reroll hits and wounds, so they really slap as well. But he just really quickly ran out of the ability to kill me, and I just pressed forward into his DZ and locked him out of the game. So ended up being a 94-73. Great game to my opponent. Was a really fun one. This is one of the elves are one matchup where, depending on what their build is, you can grind them down, and I did have success there in this game taking grind just because of how many small units he has. Obviously, Ruthless Tyranny is an auto take, and then I took Storm of Darkness. It's not a secondary I really like taking because not moving knights is a big hassle. But the way the board, I'm bummed I didn't get a picture of this board because it was I feel like I did a really good job setting it up player place terrain wise. But it was one board where I had 3 objectives that were like the middle objective, and then the 2 on my side were pretty safe. So I ended up taking Storm just because I didn't want to have to he didn't give up Assassinate, so it was that, or I actually can't even think of another one. So Storm of Darkness was a pretty safe 9. I decided to take it and got a 9 on it. He had great secondaries too. I mostly just beat him on the primary. He did pretty well on Hidden Path and Scout the Enemy, which are some decent Eldar secondaries. And then Big Game is obviously at least 12 points if they're playing the game with me. So ended up being 94-73, and great game to my opponent. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see all the tricks that Ynnari can do. But yeah, just a bit of a mismatch in terms of the firepower we were shooting at each other. Like, I was shooting him with guns that were just picking up his units, and then he was trying to shoot scatter lasers at knights and doing 1 damage. It was a bit rough, but honestly, very well played to him to make it as close as he did.
Yeah, good stuff. This dude has an insane number of shots, but they are not especially quality shots, which I don't feel like is a super winning recipe. How did the Fire Dragons end up impacting this? I feel like that's sort of his goal to mitigate that, is the Fire Dragons and the D cannons. How effective were those guys? I haven't seen Fire Dragons in a hot minute.
Fire Dragons he put in Deep Strike. So they came in on they unfortunately had a bit of a bad run because on turn 2 he forgot about them. He was like, oh, the Incarn's gonna go bash and I'm gonna send all this stuff in, and then he just completely spaced in the Fire Dragons, and that was the opportunity for them to do some damage that they missed, which was a bummer. And then his D cannons, the big thing you can do with D cannons to mitigate their effectiveness is play with range, because they only have 24-inch range. He put them on his we're playing bomber mission, right? So he put them in the top left corner of the. He put them in the very corner of his DZ, basically at the very top. So I just measured 29 inches away from them every turn and said, "Yeah, sure, you can kill the one war dog I'm going to throw up to like try to deny your primary, but you're not gonna kill anything else." And those guys at the end of the day, when they're -1 to hit from shooting indirectly, and I can rotate for a 4-up invuln, it actually is genuinely swingy whether or not they kill a baby knight. So especially with only 4 of them, so I was able to kind of ignore them for the most part and just focus on killing everything else. And also, if I ever get a beat on them, they're absolutely dead because they're paper. So yeah, D cannons weren't that big of a deal.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. I was gonna criticize his secondary choices because I feel like behind is so good for this list, but like, I mean, I can't argue with a 10 on scout. Like that's great, and path is really good. So.
To be fair, that was one squad of rangers that just refused. I think I terror shaded them with the Aura of Terror every turn, and he just rolled like 2-2-1, 2-1-1, 1-1-3, 3-1-1. Like, oh my god, they were so brave and just refused to run away. They were just camping on the middle objective, scouting that enemy. And they were literally there until turn 5, the absolute heroes. It was unreal.
That's a thing that happens, I suppose.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Very nicely done. Well, a little bit of a sneak preview. This is not the last we've seen of George. He'll make a surprise reappearance later in the episode. But cool beans.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. My round 2. I'll be a little bit quick about this. I get to play into, I don't know, some rando that I've never heard of before. Little fellow by the name of Chuck Arnett from BIFPOD, the original series. Love this guy. I mean, obviously, like, he's on our network. He's great, especially in the hobby department. And if you're not looking at this stuff on YouTube, if you're listening, just go over to his Instagram or check it out in Hobby Chat or whatever. His stuff is incredible. Chuck is playing Mono Zinch, and man, this is really the whole story of this tournament. I think is this army right here, right? Like, as awesome it is that Nick ends up winning the tournament, I think that this is kind of the headliner, because this list is nonsense. He's got. You want to walk us through this pile of changing
Zinchy
of
goodness.
ways? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we of course have Abaddon because he can be taken in every list apparently. We've got Be'lakor, we've got 10 Blue Horrors, we've got 3 Soul Grinders of Zinch, a Herald on Disc, a Herald on Chariot, and 3 squads of 5 Flamers. So definitely taken all of the really strong Zinch marked units, and then also some cuteness with 3 Soul Grinders. They for being Zinch, they get a 4-up invuln in melee, which makes them really resilient to getting punched, which is usually the area where demons are weak, is getting punched in melee. And they shoot pretty well, and there are a whole bunch of wounds, so they just can park on them objectives and ask you to do something about it, and you can't always do something about it. So yeah, really cool creative list. How did this game go?
Yeah, I will also comment, by the way, I absolutely refuse to call the Heralds anything other than that. That is my one grognard take, and I'm sticking with it. Fate, flappy, tentacle, skimming nonsense. Get out of here. All right. This game was crazy, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want to hear more about it, you can check out the episode of BIFPOD, the original series where Chuck talks about this. Chuck does end up going 5-0 with this tournament, which is super cool. So he is going to end up winning this game. But so you can listen to him for the full recap, but a couple of highlights. This was the game that convinced me that Spore Mines are absolutely insane. Like, I was aware that they were very strong, but oh my gosh, especially with forceful blocking. Chuck throws a Soul Grinder up onto the midfield objective, and he's like, ha ha ha, you better commit a real unit here. And I was like, all right, well, I'll start off by throwing the 14 Spore Mines that I have in this midfield ruin up into them. Oh, 10 Spore Mines. Oh, that did 14 mortal wounds? Oh, okay. So he's got 2 wounds left? Cool. Smite? Oh, he's gone. Sorry about that, Chuck. Which was very funny. And then the other incredible moment is Be'lakor being like, I am Be'lakor, I will kill everything. And then flying through a bunch of mines, and then charging Venom Thropes, which make him fight last, and then 2-up poison him. And Be'lakor on Chuck's turn went from a full 20 wounds down to 1. Chuck fails one more 4+ save on that Be'lakor, and I totally win this game. I will also say, Chuck, like, gave me too much credit in his depiction of this game last week because he I don't know, he misremembered what happened. He did not fight on death Abaddon. He decided against it, and then like the idiot I am, I left my Reaper out of synaptic link range, so she had to cast Onslaught on herself, and he 4-up denied it. So she just sat there and took it, and then he charged her, and she fought on death and killed him back. Was not cute. So that was a mess. The big issue with this game, though, the thing that I think is actually the big takeaway is Flamers. God, this unit is insane. I highly under-prioritized the Flamers in this game, and that led to all of my nonsense points just not working, right? I very often, into something like Demons, am comfortable with the idea of, you're going to rush me and do a bunch of damage, and I'm going to score a bunch of points sitting in your DZ where you can't do anything. Chuck has 0 OBSEC in this list, and I kind of laughed because that's so good for me. But the Flamers are so damn fast that if you're not tagging them, which I wasn't, I was just killing them in melee, but if you're not tagging all the units, a single unit causes massive problems. He had like one guy with 1 wound survive a charge from some warriors, and that dude just like killed 2 units in the next 2 turns, and it was a massive issue. So score-wise is over here. The primary ends up actually being a dead tie at 24-24, but Chuck just obliterates me on secondaries. Like I said, my behind enemy lines was only a 6. That's usually much more consistent than that into this kind of matchup because those Flamers got back there and did their work. My Nephilim was not ideal because he actually got my Gargoyles really early, which was really smart of him. I totally messed up. He shot the Gargoyles, killed like 7 of them, and all right, that's fine. 3 of them are all I need. I can 1 CP regrow if I need to. I thought that I had pulled casualties in such a way that he couldn't see them anymore. And the next turn, he's like, I can still see those guys. And I was like, oh, snap, my mistake. And he killed them. So that was a huge mistake as well. That cost me at least 4 points, probably more, because they're really great late game for things like behind, and also potentially a bomb. My interrogation was awful because Chuck used the 4-up deny strat 4 times this game. I vected it the first time, and he spent 2 CP to use it 3 more times, and he rolled the 4+ every single time. So that denied Onslaught on a clutch turn and denied Interrogate 3 other times. So that was not ideal. Whereas his secondaries, No Prisoners is obviously going to be a 15, Reality Rebels is obviously going to be a 15, and Despoilers of Reality he pulls an 8 on, so ends up being a fairly really close game. But my secondary plan did not work out so hot against him, and I crumpled just a little bit too quickly.
Do you think maybe a different secondary game plan would have been better? In particular, I'm thinking of Big Game Hunter. I'm curious how many of his big models you killed.
Yeah, I should have taken Big Game, I think. How many wounds is the Soul Grinder?
16. So each grinder is 3, and Be'lakor is 4.
Is 4, and then the Fate Skimmer is 1. Little Chariot dude, he's 10 wounds. Or 9 wounds.
Does Chariot... Oh, he's a vehicle?
He's a vehicle, yeah. Chariot is a subclass of vehicle. Anyway. But yeah, I think that would have probably been a better take. I mean, obviously, I only scored 3 points on Interrogation, and without even trying, I scored 7 points on that because I killed a Grinder and Be'lakor. And if I decided to go into that a little bit more, I definitely could have killed a second Grinder. I think that probably would have been a better call here. But yeah, I think you're right. That would have been the go. I didn't know until last night that Be'lakor gave up 4 points. I thought it was over 20, not 20 plus. And that really shifts the math on that one. I think Big Game probably would have been a better take.
Yep.
So that would have helped with some of the points, but yeah, I needed to hang on just a little bit longer, and those Flamers were just such an issue. So props to Chuck. Oh, also, if I don't, mess up my synaptic link line and I get to kill Abaddon for free, this goes a lot better. But, that's kind of how it goes. Very tight game. Could have gone in a lot of different directions. Cool. Moving on to round 3, we're playing Abandoned Sanctuaries. And you are going to run into our boys, the Grey Knights, as fielded by the man, the myth, the legend, Max Schwartzer. Let's see what he's got here. He's got a battalion with a chaplain. He's got a librarian. He's got Drago. He's got 3 squads of 5 strikes. He's got the Ancient with the Gem of Inoktu, which is the once per game +1 to cast. Is that what that is? +2 to cast. Spicy. He's got an Apothecary. His big old classic brick of 10 paladins, 2 squads of 5 interceptors, and a single squad of 10 interceptors that could be combat squatted later. Lucas, I've heard a lot about this game. How you want to go ahead and break this down for our viewers?
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. I've got a weird mic notification. Yeah, this game was really fun. I've played against Max a lot. I think Max and we probably play each other more than any other 40k player. So we definitely know each other's play style and mannerisms and stuff. So it's always super easy to just have a fun game against him because we both know what each other are doing, and it's just a matter of formalities of like the tactical decisions rather than like, oh, what you know. It's nice to just play against a friend and have a very familiar game is what I'm getting at. So yeah, Man in Sanctuaries is definitely a very unique mission. I thought I could do well this game by kind of like spreading the field and putting a bunch of war dogs on each flank and then just kind of rushing up the middle with the big knight to cause a bunch of problems. And I forget one very key item about Max, and that's that he will absolutely go for a 9-inch charge if it will have a chance of winning in the game.
The dude is a living legend.
The thing is that this wasn't even a chance of him winning the game. This was basically an instant win if he landed the 9, because at this point it's game 3. Like, I'm tired. I'm not quite thinking straight, and I just assume things about my opponents that aren't necessarily true. Like, oh, they won't go for a 9-inch charge. I'll just line my knights up on the line or like cram them all in one corner. Nothing bad can happen. And he just the jumps on turn 1 without a CP and just lands the 9-inch charge and kills 4 knights and pins 2 more in a corner. So I start my turn 2 with 4 armigers and the big knight, and there's honestly not much more to talk about this game. Some unfortunate luck locked me out of any kind of attempt at a comeback. But yeah, there's only so much you can do when 10 paladins gravity hammer half your army on turn 1. So yeah, definitely learn to respect those guys. They don't have a lot of mobility unless the gate play works out, and in this game it worked out for Max. So very excited that he gets to move on. He's 3-0 after day 1, but yeah, foolish mistake from me. All I needed to do was just offer up 1 dog on, 1 dog forward on each flank and 1 in the middle to kind of screen out his to jump plays, and all of a sudden that game is much more manageable for me, even if I end up losing it. So we can go ahead and take a look at the score sheet here. Here are the pictures that Nick had last week, because Nick's going to play into Max next round. But yeah, here's my score sheet in the Max. You can see I kind of held on, got some 8s on primary for a little while, but really the tail of the tape here is my 4 on Ruthless Tyranny. I was tabled after turn 2. So yeah, not amazing. Yeah, it was a good game though, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that there's good lessons to be learned kind of on both sides of the coin here. Like, on your part, expect the unexpected and be ready to screen that out, and don't take too much for granted. But also on Max's part, he made such the right call here. He knows this matchup. You guys play a ton. He knows that you're probably in a pretty advantageous position here. There's a faction disparity. There's a bit of a player skill disparity. He's got to do something. And he saw this absolutely wild opportunity and said, hey, if I hit a 9-inch charge, the game is over. Right? 27% chance to win the game. And if he doesn't hit that 9-inch charge, I don't think he gets absolutely wrecked for taking that risk.
Right.
I think it's definitely not the best place for the Paladins to be, but it's manageable.
Right.
So look for those opportunities, especially when you feel like you're already on the back foot, to take a bit of risk. And props to Max for showing us how it's done. This is not a play that I would ever go for.
It's very common 40k vernacular to play to your outs, but I've really not seen anyone epitomize that as much as Max did in this game, where he saw an opportunity to just, regardless of what could happen and all the lines that could happen if he failed this charge, he just discounted all that and said, I have a 30% chance to win this game on the spot, and he took it, and it paid out for him. And yeah, honestly, big props for having the balls to do that. I know we kind of laugh at, well, I enjoy laughing at players that are just completely averse to risk and never do anything outside their wheelhouse and just go with their like sit back and get my points game plan. I think that play style is very boring and hilarious. But Max is the opposite extreme, where he will just go for something, and it's hilarious when it works out. So well played, Max.
Yeah, Nick Nanavati is famous for saying that famous said at one point something to the effect of like the biggest threat to a high level competitive player is not another high level competitive player. The biggest threat to a high level competitive player is a mid tier player with really hot dice and no restraint at all.
Someone who knows what they're doing and knows their game plan and is not afraid to just take risks.
Yeah. It's scary. I would so much, terrifying. So good job, Max, for pulling this off and for reminding us to be ready for nonsense, because that's the play. Cool. I'm going to jump over to SoCal for a second here for this round three. Round three I played into a Nid's Mirror. It was not a particularly optimized list. The guy's more focused on having fun. I was already 1-1, so it goes. I'm going to talk about this list instead. I was playing, I think it was round 2 of SoCal. I'm playing into this guy, Scott, with his Space Wolves. Scott is, he actually talked about him on the Thursday show. He's very well ranked in the West Coast. He's done very well. I think he's in the Utah area. And he is playing Space Wolves.
The old nemesis.
Man, I hate Space Wolves. If y'all haven't been listening to the show since the beginning, you might not know that I have the worst track record into Space Wolves of any faction. Full stop. And people laugh at that because Space Wolves are not that good. And it still happens. Because Army-wide heroics and a lot of access to fight on death is just a problem. And then on top of that, this dude had... you can walk through the list in a sec, but he had infiltrators. And we played abandoned sanctuaries, which is what I'm talking about now. And I went first.
Oy.
Oh, all right, walk us through the list, Lucas.
We got a captain on bike. I think this is the guy who's a chapter master with a hammer and hunter, so like advances and charges and stuff. Got a chaplain with jump pack, squad of incrusors, 2 squads of infiltrators, 3 squads of 5 wolf guard, aka van vets, 3 squads of 5 wolfen. We got 2 land speeder tornadoes. I think these are the ones with the melta and the assault cannon. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
We got 1 land spear. And then 3 squads of 3 eliminators with last fusils. Okay, so like if people are gonna make spelling mistakes in the list, I'm gonna read them because I think it's funny. You and Nick keep doing this, and I'm gonna keep reading them that way. Okay.
That's fine. It's very funny. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, the infiltrators are a big issue. The wolfen are a big issue. The eliminators and land speeders are kind of whatever. This dude loves guns, by the way. All 3 of those land speeders have a multi-melta. The eliminators have las fusils. All of his van vet squads have a combi melta on the sergeant. Both his captain on bike and his chaplain with jump pack have combi meltas. So like, there's a surprising amount of gun here. Like this dude is like Harry but with more fur. And I am not a fan of this. So very cool. I messed up my terrain big time on this one. I unfortunately don't have a picture because it was all very kerfuffly. But I bodge it. Remember how I was talking about how the big thing for me is like put the terrain such that I can have dudes. I can have Death Leaper or just any obsec dude on the objective surrounded by mines behind a wall. That's like so important to my game plan, and I just completely botched that. I don't give enough room for that. I only give enough room to touch a dude on, which means that I can't safely hold an objective without getting absolutely charged to pieces. Or shot to pieces, even. I think that one had windows, yeah. So that was a pretty massive mistake on my part that I flubbed. And then, so Scott, I had to go first, which is not fun. I try to move up and take a little bit of positioning. And my brain was just so beat at this event. This is only round 2, but we had just done the full Turkey Wars thing, traveling to Olympia, played 5 rounds, traveled back, and then I had flown down to San Diego, was exhausted from that, and to make that all happen, I had a midterm in the middle of the week that I had to study like hell for classical mechanics. So like and I had to grade like 170 papers. That's not an exaggeration. So like my brain is completely shot. And like every game you hear from this event, I'm going to make some terrible plays because I am not on my game. Scott really intelligently places his terrain and moves up his models. So Wolfen are in places that I don't want them to be. His land speeders are in good spots. One of his land speeders runs over and gets shots on the spore assist because there was no real way to prevent that. Lucky me, he whiffed because man, I would have had no game if he had killed the spore assist right there, top one. But I send dudes off in a couple of different directions, and I get way over aggressive. I send a squad of Tyrant Guard, like full YOLO across the table, into his eliminators with the intention to clog up his stuff for a minute, thinking he'll have to commit every I don't even know what I'm thinking here. I'm thinking he's gonna I'm gonna do a bunch of damage. Oh no, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'll go kill the guns, and then once he's out of guns, I'll be safe to stand in better positions, and then from there I'll be able to make more magic happen. This is a terrible idea because I'm trading away the Tyrant Guard, which are the unit that wants to be out once the guns go away, for the guns, and it doesn't even work because I don't put my buffs in the right places, which is awful. And then, as I'm finishing up my movement phase, I realize that he has moved 5 Wolfen up toward the middle. We're playing on the city ruins terrain, which is one of my least favorite FLG tables, which has that giant box in the middle that's just shifted slightly over. And he has parked Wolfen behind it that I didn't even see because it's a giant box. And yeah, he's not gotching me or anything here. He's like, oh yeah, no problem. If you want to do stuff differently, go ahead and do it. So I'm like, all right, great. I'll go in with the drills then into them, and that'll be great. And I'll go drills into them, Raveners into the other squad, Tyrant Guard will go into the Eliminators. And it just does not occur to me that I'm not setting up enough fights lasts here. I'm getting interrupted. I have the Magus come in with Mass Hypnosis and just don't line her up to cast it because my brain is off. And I'm so annoyed with myself. But I messed that up. And then I decide to fight first with the Acolytes instead of with the Raveners. And then the Raveners just get obliterated. And then the Acolytes, they kill all the Wolfen, and the Wolfen fight on death. Because I had whittled down that Wolfen a little bit earlier. I don't remember if it was with mines or with shots or smites or whatever, but I'd whittled them down. Oh yeah, it was the Raveners that shot at them. They only kill 7 dudes. So I still have 3 full drills, which probably still kill most of what's left of that Wolfen squad. So I botched the fights last in the first place, and then I double botch it by fighting in the wrong order. And now he's got a squad of Wolfen behind a wall, which is way scarier than the squad that are kind of out in the open. Man, this was awful. I am playing terribly. Messing up my fights lasts. The mines are still doing a lot of damage. And then because I threw that Tyrant Guard squad deep into his DZ, he then gets to charge it with the Captain, which turns on his Saga. So now his whole army advances and charges. That's a problem. He collapses. I swing back real hard, and I do my play again. Like with the Possessed, I give the Wolfen -1 to wound, and then I send in the Tyrant, and then I Psychic Scream one of them down, and then I charge and do a full 6 mortals and kill 2 more of them on the charge. Super lucky. And the 2 Wolfen that are left smack the Tyrant and do 8 damage to it. Through Invulns, through Catalyst, doesn't matter. 8 damage. Die. Hate fight on death. I hate it so much. Through -1 to wound. He's wounding me on, I guess it's only 4s, but I'm annoyed. Anyway, so that was that, and he collapses. He's worried that he's run out of stuff, but this has happened to me a lot, where people are like, oh man, I'm all out of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but now it's your turn. And you have enough stuff to kill my stuff. You're not out of stuff. If it were my turn, sure, but you're gonna just clean the floor real quick. So he does that, takes care of business, and pulls out the dub very comfortably after collapsing in on the center. He even pulls off a really clever play. I forgot that Space Wolves have a damn +3 inches to pile in and consolidate stratagem, which he uses to great effect, which ends up holding me to a 0 on primary on turn 4, which props, man. This dude was clutch. Fantastic play on his part. I botch a bunch of these things, but he capitalizes on it perfectly. I think because there's a pretty big disparity in list power here. I definitely have a better army. I think that I have to make I think if I play this perfectly, he's in a bad spot. But man, did he capitalize on my mistakes like a champion. This dude is an excellent player. If he were playing a slightly stronger faction, everyone should be terrified of this dude. This is Scott Rumpel. Great job, bro. He ends up pulling it out 84 to 56, which is real nice. My interrogations this game went terribly, that was not because of anything that he did. That was just me being bad at the game because I needed my Flyrant to be on one side and my Magus was dead, and his characters, he huddled very well on the other side. Sorry, it was totally because something he did. He kept his characters out of interrogation range super well. Props for that. Probably should have taken Ritual on this one because there's so much emphasis on the center anyway, but here we are. His shock tactics worked well. His R&D worked okay. That was kind of a win more situation because like he doesn't have any deep strikers or anything, so he was just hoping to get across the table, and he got an 8 out of it because he tabled me. Yeah, he got a full 12. He got a 12 on no prisoners. I ended with a 9 on no prisoners, similarly an 8 on R&D because again he's got infiltrators, so I can't even drop into his backfield. Interrogation was not so great. So this was a mess. Very well played by Scott. Had a really, really good time with him. Would love to play him again in the future, hopefully with my brain in a slightly better state than I was at SoCal this weekend. But yeah, cool stuff. Great job, Scott. You played super well. Congrats on the dub. All right, let's move on to day 2. Cool. Clocking over to Conversion, people's least favorite of the 2 sweep and clear missions. This one's got a lot of funkiness in that you've got to keep your Warlord on the table to get your CP, and also this is the 2 points for holding a midfield, 4 points for holding your opponent's, minus 1 point for not holding your own at the end of your turn, which is kind of fun. I honestly think I kind of prefer this to Death and Zeal, personally, because I love the play of, oh man, I really need points. I can get kind of desperate and fight for my opponent's backfield. Yeah, it's fun. And the Warlord thing, that part's kind of wonky. We'll talk about that in a sec. So Lucas is playing into the highest level of competitive at 40k, which is of course Imperial Guard. He's playing into a Guard Brigade. He's got a company commander, a Primaris Psyker, 3 tank commanders with 2 with demo cannons and bolters, and 1 with Gatekeeper and Plasma. Gatekeeper is of course the 3 damage battle cannon, I think. No, that is, yeah. 7 squads of 10 infantry, all with mortars. It's 7th edition again, I suppose. Or early 8th edition. He's got an Astropath. He's got 2 squads of 3 veterans. Wait, 2x3 veterans with mortars? You can take a 3-man veteran squad?
Because I think the mortar counts as 2 dudes.
Gotcha. I had no idea. Guard are crazy, man. Pair of platoon commanders, pair of armored sentinels, a scout sentinel, 3x3 mortars, Paramana cores, and a Chimera. This dude likes indirect fire and says that Guard getting out of that nerf is something he should capitalize on as much as possible. And he's doing pretty well. It's 2-1 going into this game. So
it was like the 3rd thing he told me when we came to the table. He's like, hey, my name is, what was his name? Sean? I played him in round 4, and then the next round of Turkey Wars, I played his brother. So it's either Sean or Evan. I don't really remember. Either way, he's like, hey, I'm Sean. I'm playing Cadians, and I love indirect. And I'm like, let's go, baby. Let's go. So, yeah, this was a wild game.
I assume there's a funny flag in here somewhere that hasn't been listed?
Yeah, that is the Relic of Cadia that I have on the Gatekeeper right there.
Oh, it's on the Gatekeeper. That's interesting. I always assumed you'd put that on a dude, but I guess if it's on a tank, it's like a much bigger aura.
Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly.
All right.
Gatekeeper also apparently is +1 to wound against Chaos. Guard have so much Chaos. So this is why this game is genuinely super interesting and close. Is Guard have a ton of ways to just absolutely shit on Chaos, which all the Chaos players know about, and for some reason no one else knows about, and everyone thinks it's hilarious, but it's genuinely frustrating when you're like, oh, I'm playing with my new Codex against a 6-year-old Codex that doesn't really do anything. Let's see if they blow me off the table or not. Yeah, that Gatekeeper's +1 to wound. They have a strat. Guard can spend a CP to give any unit, because they don't have the freaking core keyword, give any unit reroll hits and wounds against Chaos. Obviously, they have 6s to hit auto wound, which is really good against a high toughness army like Chaos Knights. And he's got the Relic of Lost Cadia, which is like a 6 or a 9. I think it's a 6-inch ore. I'll just say 6 of real hits and wounds for Guard against Chaos. So again, his entire army is rerolling hits and wounds for 1 turn against my entire army, which is really terrifying. So despite the scorecard, which you can switch I think I can switch as well. Here's the table. I went first, which was very lucky. If he had gone first, he probably would have knocked out 3, 4, maybe 5 armigers, and then I really don't have a shot back into that game. But I went first, started pushing forward, started crashing on his sentinel screens, and really allowed this game to be firmly in my control in terms of like the primary. As we're going to see in a second, I absolutely smashed Sean on the primary. And that's just because my guys are OBSEC 5. It's really hard for him to actually stay on the objectives because of things like Ravenous Terror Shades and just generally being easy to kill for things like chain guns. And we can see here I've really bottled him up in his DZ. The big knight is chilling on his home field, hanging out there. And the rest of the armigers are spreading out on the table. And the idea here is that you want to force the guard to shoot at your big knight, especially because she's no rerolls a hit or wound. And when she gets trans hitman, those tank commanders, it's really just a series of coin flips. And you can kind of ride that coin flip train and force him to keep shooting you with his activations. And then your armigers can win the game by controlling the primary from there. So this was on turn, I think. This was bottom of 2. And what ended up happening right after this moment was my big knight. I was going to try to revive her because guard are obviously a one-phase army. And despite the fact that it looks like she's in the middle of his army, she wasn't. She was like 8 or 9 inches from all those tanks. It's just kind of like a weird angle going on right now. So I didn't want to auto-explode her. I wanted to revive her instead. But what ended up happening was you have to check to see if the knight explodes before you do the revive, and I naturally rolled the 6. And then I rolled like a 10-inch explosion. So all of those tanks took D6 mortals, and I killed like 5 characters, and all of the mortars lost 2 guys, and the last guy ran to morale. I think this was a game I took grind them down in. On turn 1, we went like 2 units for 2 units. And then on turn 2, I think I got like, we counted up. It was absurd. I think I actually killed 15 units. Because I got like 3 or 4 characters, 3 or 4 infantry squads, all 3 heavy weapon squads, and like 2 tanks and a sentinel. It was absurd. But yeah, so we can go to the next slide here. I think I can do that. Oops, I'm dumb. Yeah, we can see he made a really valiant effort on his secondaries. Guard have some good secondaries as long as they can kind of establish their board presence and not get tabled. But unfortunately, he did get tabled this game, so I shut him out of those pretty quickly. Obviously, he did well in big game, but the tail of the tape is the primary. He wasn't even able to control his home field objectives. I think those zeros should have actually been -1s because there was many times where he was not on his objective at the end of the turn because of explosions and morales and stuff like that. So yeah, despite the 97-34 scoreline, genuinely a super close game that if he went first, I think he probably would have won. Or if his turn 2 was less devastating, I think he also could have had a better shot. But you just got to play the primary against guard. What's up?
Lucas, if you're going to make fun of my spelling, I'm going to make fun of your math. You have written on your scorecard here, 3 + 4 + 4 = 15.
Where is that?
For Ruthless Tyranny?
Oh.
Like, I know you got a 15 because you actually held all the objectives turn 4 and 5, but, like, you did write that on your scorecard.
That's the math, dude.
That's a yellow card right there, bro. -10 points.
Yeah, sure. I'm cheating. Get me out of the tournament. Kick me out.
Throw him out. All right. Good stuff, man. That's crazy. Especially to see a game that can swing that bad. I really want to see you play into Mitchell and see how that goes.
I was terrified, man.
He's real good, and he's got a lot of shots.
The Scion orders reroll wounds against vehicles and monsters. What am I supposed to do against that? My whole army's vehicles.
Yeah. I don't know, dog. Good luck.
I guess.
Cool. All right. I'll jump back over to Turkey. We're talking about my round 4 there because we are. This is the sneaky second appearance for George. He got to play both of us. Oh man, this was the craziest game that I had played in a hot minute. Oh my gosh. You already heard about his list. It's the Inari with all the very fast-moving, fast-attack stuff. And, I'm scared. So here's deployment, Lucas. I don't know if I showed you this picture of how we deployed. We're playing conversion, and he basically said, "I'm going to deploy my army on the line." And I said, "Okay, bet. I'll deploy my army on the line. What are you going to do about it, brother?" Because, like, when you're playing into elves, your goal is to put them in the locker. And my thought process was he doesn't have a ton of command points. And we're playing first floor blocking, so I'm not getting shot at very well. Tyrant Guard with a Venom Thrope behind and in cover. The D-Cannons, unless he gets Rangers in my face to give the stratagems to, the D-Cannons hit on 5s, they wound on 5s, and I have a 3+ save. Like, get out of here. Those things are useless.
You wound on 3s, right?
Guard. Sorry, they went on 3s. Yeah, they went on 3s. Because they're
I know, they're
no, they went on 2s.
Oh, they will wound on 2s.
Yeah.
But the point is they hit you on
5s,
5s, and you'll have a 4-up save. But 3-up save.
Yeah. Because 2-up base, +1 for cover, +2 for double cover to a 0-up, -4 for AP4 is a 4-up, +1 for indirect is a 3-up. So yeah, 3-up saves. So they're not that scary. And everyone else is basically outside of 24 of where they are because they're pretty far back. But he's got so much crap, and I just want to start racking up kills right away. I want to be like out there in force doing my thing. You'll notice that the Sporocyst is much further back than usual in this matchup. I like her on that top left flank, but I'm terrified of all that nonsense. I need her to stick around for the late game, so she's going to sit a little bit further back than usual. And also, 18 inches is her range is a shockingly long way that she can shoot spores. She's able to put them basically in that top box from her current position. The parallax is kind of weird, but it's really far. So I don't mind her being a little bit further back at all. Deathleaper's still going to go over there and do his little thug thizzle. So this is crazy. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Tyler, you're playing forces. Obviously, if someone's going to deploy on the line against you with infinite movement dudes, you're going to blip them out, right? Just put down your 2 blips and be like, all right, sorry, you don't get to charge me turn 1. That would have been a really smart idea. It really would have. Screw that. Absolutely not. No babies allowed here. We are grown-ass men. We're going for it. We're slapping our junk on the table, and we're going to see what happens.
Go, dude.
What I mean by that, actually, as much as I'm like, haha, isn't this so funny? I'm, making a bad tactical decision for the memes. Actually, I was not that concerned about his Alpha Strike. I didn't think he was going to hit me that hard. Because I'm an inch off the wall, so he's not like if he wants to charge me with spears, he's going way the hell around, so that's not really a threat. He can get some infantry in for sure. My Venom Thropes are set up to fight last almost anything that comes in to fight me, which doesn't actually matter against the Banshees, I realized a little bit later, but that's neither here nor there. But the Mortal Wound would be nice, I suppose. Anyway, I'm not that crazy concerned about his Alpha Strike, and I really want my GSC in reserve because I really want to be going for all of these secondary plays because this is a dude that is going to vacate his deployment zone. 100%, right? All of this stuff is coming directly into my DZ, so I want as much nonsense to dump it into his as possible. So, secondary-wise, he's got no prisoners, obviously. He's got Enlightened to You, Scout to the Enemy, and the Hidden Path. And I've got Behind Enemy Lines, Retrieve Knockman Data, and Warp Ritual. I went with Ritual over Interrogate here for 2 reasons. Number 1, both of his characters are wizards, so I'd rather not be necessarily deny range. Sorry, 3 reasons. Number 2, there are wizards who could very easily sit very far back. Right, the Incarn gets to be wherever the hell she wants to be, basically. So having to go find her is annoying. And number 3, I wanted to kill his Psychers as quickly as possible. Obviously, the Incarn is the Incarn. It needs to go away, or it's going to cause a lot of trouble. And then the Shadow Seer is his Warlord. So I'd like her to die. More on that later. So I'm like, this is great. I'm going to go first. I'm going to slam you in the locker. It's going to be great. I roll a 1. He rolls a 2. And I say, all right, guess you're going first. This is going to hurt. And I wish I had taken a photo of what this looked like immediately after because he hit the gas hard. He jumps his scat bikes up, obliterates my gargoyles. They're just dead. I think he killed 2 biovores as well, which I didn't. No, I don't think he killed biovores. He killed 1 biovore maybe. Anyway, he killed the gargoyles, which is really annoying because I need them to R&D and stuff. So that's a problem. He runs a whole bunch of crap over to that top left objective. And then the Banshees and a squad of troops run right up the water spout and just boom, screw your Tyrant Guard. They're dead. Just smacks X. She just ace a squad. I think she might kill Yeah, I think they just ace a squad right off the hop, and I'm like,
Who was this? The Banshees and who?
and the troops.
Wild.
Banshees hit hard.
They do.
Plus one to wound on the charge makes them wounding on 4s. Like, it's a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's AP4, which is a problem for me. So they do a ton of damage, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't exactly expected. Cool. I'll try to hit back. I won't do much. Like, that's fine. And then, yeah, he runs up on the top there and is like, all right, I got a bunch of dudes over here. What are you going to do about it? And I'm like, all right, let's get funky. The only thing he has in the center objective is a squad of spears. Tyrant, go kill spears, come back. Great job. All right. Top left objective, Deathy, go get it. Do your thing, buddy. Deathy runs over, does his thing, not a problem. Raveners, go up the top way as well, do your thing. They cut a bead, shoot some troops, knock 3 of them down, charge something else that's over there. I think it was like Rangers or something. Kill the OBSEC. OBSEC has to go away. Looks good. Objective fairly locked down. And then he's like, here comes... And then I'm like, all right. And then I got to kill the troops and the Banshees. I'll just kill them in combat with dudes right in front of him. And I kill them. I don't kill the Banshees. I leave the Exarch alive at like 1 or 2 wounds. Which was nonsense to me, how many 5-up invulns he made. But that's just how it goes sometimes, you know? And I kill the last troop in combat. And he's like, oops, here's the Incarn in your deployment zone. Uh-oh. And I'm like,
the Inari Classic.
Well, that's concerning. Fortunately, I've like set this up correctly because you know I knew she'd be charging me this turn. So the Hive Tyrant ends up back in that spot there, fully surrounded. So she's not at risk of getting charged because I know that he will happily trade the Incarn for the Tyrant. That's a great trade for him. As annoying as the Incarn is, the Tyrant is just better. So the Incarn goes in and is like, Tyrant Guard, goodbye. I think she only kills 4 of them because they make a couple of Filma pains. And but yeah, and I'm like, all right, well, there's all my Tyrant Guard are dead base. I think I have like one. No, I have like 2 Tyrant Guard remaining.
Yeah.
Oh, she kind of whiffed, didn't she? Yeah, she didn't do crazy hard because I think is she only AP3 or maybe she's AP4 and I rolled 2 6s.
She's AP4.
She's AP4, yeah. I think she's AP4 and I rolled 2 6s to save, and then her D3 plus 3 I rolled a couple of catalysts against. So she does her thing, and then teleports away when he finishes off the Raveners at the top on that top objective. So, but that top objective situation is crazy. He's got bikes, he's got the couple of troops, he's got the Shadow Seer, and they're all like, "We're gonna go kill the Death Leaper. Screw you, Death Leaper." And the Death Leaper is like, "Nope, nope, nope."
Four
Nope.
up invuln.
4 up,
Dodging.
4 up, 4 up. Get out of here. I'm an invisible hunter, bro. He knocks him down to like a couple of wounds, and I'm spending CP to heal him D3 in my command phase. You know
Let's
I'm doing
go.
it. Dude's a freaking Chad. He is my favorite thing in the Tyranid Codex, and it's not close. And he's sitting there like, this is my objective. What are you gonna do about it? And he's like killing bikes and he's killing troops, and the Shadow Seer is just like chilling there, and I'm like, oh, my turn. And I waltz a couple of Spore Mines up and say, "Hey, Mr. Shadow Seer." And she is removed from this plane of existence. And he has 1 CP when I do this, and now he has no CP because that's the Warlord kill.
Hilarious.
So I kill his Shadow Seer like in my turn 2 movement phase, bottom of 2.
Holy cow.
And the and the Reaper. So he's got the Incarn up at the top there, like on that big cathedral building up by my top left objective, and the Flyrant's like, hoo, 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 let's get him, and like flies all the way over there, and it's like, I'm gonna get you. And then I'm like, you know what? I've looked at the math. There's not a guarantee that the Flyrant kills the Incarn here. She halves damage. She's a 4-up invuln. I know how 4-up invulns go. I need a little bit more consistency here. I'll shoot like every gun in my army at her. It won't do anything. She passed every single save, and I was like, all right, that's cool. And then I'm also going to send the Drill Squad into her as well. We'll hypnotize her to make sure she fights last. Drill Squad will go in. Big Girl will go in. We'll get the job done. And sure enough, the Big Girl, the Flyrant, was like, I saw what you did to my buddies, my little Tyrant Guards, my little servants there. I saw what you did to them. How about I wind up and knock you into left fucking field over the fence, and the Incarn went blasting off again and ceased to exist. And the drills were like, whatever, we're here, we're doing our thing. What's also really fun is because of how everything got spread out, behind enemy lines is really wacky in this game. Because, I only, we think about, it's so hard because you can't be in that bottom right-hand quadrant and get behind enemy lines on this one. But sneaking in, up the top edge of the board, there we go, up into his DZ that way is super doable. When I deep struck my drills, they were obviously poised to go the other direction toward the Incarn, but the Magus slipped in. It was my 32 mil base, right over the edge there. There's 2 points on behind enemy lines. And sorry, he didn't kill the Raveners. The Raveners, oh god, this was so smart. How did I forget this? He charged the Raveners with the spears and bounced off of them because it was a full 5, he killed 3 of them. And then the Raveners fought back and did a bunch of wounds, and he was like, I'm going to take my armor saves instead of my invulns. Oops, all the spears died. Poof, here's the Incarn, which was super clever on his part. Brilliant play. So those 2 Raveners then ran over and also scored behind enemy lines, which was great. So they're doing that. Meanwhile, I deep strike outside of 3 on his home field objective, take that from him, which scores me a full 6 points of tertiary on turn 2, which is huge. And then I also drop in a squad on that bottom right area, and you're like, why are you dropping in 2 squads at once, you silly goose? You can't R&D in 2 places at once. I'm not R&Ding. I'm lining up an 8-inch charge on those Rangers, and there were some bikes around there as well, because if I hit that charge, I kill those Rangers, he's done scouting for the game, he's done with Hidden Path for the game. And those secondaries are worth so many points that I figure if I hit that 8-inch charge, I win the game on the spot, basically. Right? Because I am digging myself out here. He is on me. I am terrified, right? He has killed all of my Tyrant Guard. He is killing Warriors. He has killed my Raveners. And he still has fully operational D-Cannons and Fire Dragons. My stuff is not long for this world if I don't do something quick. Unfortunately, they fail that charge, even on the 8 with the native reroll. And I'm like, argh! Can't be as cool as Max, I guess, but that's okay. I think it was still the right call. So we go for that, and I think it's the right call because I'm then, as I'm taking over a lot of table space, I'm tagging all sorts of stuff. So he doesn't have a lot of shots to put into them, and he has to decide if he wants to shoot, this is on his turn 3, those Acolytes, or if he wants to shoot my Warriors that are on the center objective that are currently scoring me a 12. The Warriors are not in cover because they had to really collapse in to deal with whatever, the bunch of bikes that were there, I think. And he goes for the Warriors and kills them, which denies my primary for sure. But then those Acolytes just, that's Nick's little song, just walk on up and say, hello, Rangers. Goodbye, Rangers. This is our objective now. And sure enough, he killed them the next turn. But this was on turn 4, I think, which means that he was out of those points for a hot minute. On turn 4, I tag everything except the scat bikes. Tagging Yanari is a really effective strategy, right? All these bikes that are focusing so much on shooting or their charge buffs, they just, once you can touch them, they lose a lot of efficiency. And this game gets wild. On turn 4, he runs out his Fire Dragons and shoots them at my last, I said, I have 1 Tyrant Guard, and he barely kills it, right? Because he's got penalties for stuff and whatnot, and the dice aren't quite. I'm 1 4-up save away from those Tyrant Guards surviving, and if that single Tyrant Guard survives, the D-Cannons cannot shoot at the Reaper, and man oh man is that game super over. But he gets it through, kills the Tyrant Guard through his 4-up saves. The Reaper gets obliterated, and we scrap a little bit harder. And I am barely able to pull this out. Final score is 78-86. Super tight game. Oh, man. Tons of fun. Tons of fast-moving stuff. Playing on every inch of the table, there was stuff going on. Fantastic game, George. This was, ton of fun. Absolute nonsense.
How do you feel about secondaries? It looks like Rod was a challenging one, but maybe that was just because he sniped out your gargoyles immediately.
Yeah, the gargoyle. Oh, yes. I got a 4 on R&D, and I only got that 4 because on turn 5, Death Leaper did R&D in the top left and rolled a 1, so he got it.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't a good take. Or was it?
I think it's a fine take if I hide my gargoyles correctly. The other thing to remember that I kept forgetting about is like I forgot he had scatter lasers. I thought all his bikes had shuriken cannons. So I was like, I had pre-measured ranges and they were fine, but 36 versus 24 is a big deal. And then also I was a lot more shots. But with that in mind, if I just put the gargoyles in cover and they have 4-up saves instead of 6-up saves, they do a lot better. And also if I just put them behind a wall a little bit better, they're also fine. So that was a huge missed opportunity. And then, yeah, I did decide, I could have R&D'd, but decided to go for that charge instead. I also probably could have traded, I had my warrior, well, no, that was on turns. Yeah. I basically traded secondaries for damage in a lot of different places. But yeah, I needed to protect the gargoyles better. And I don't think there's a better take than R&D in this situation. Like, what am I going to take into this? Like, no prisoners? I don't like that.
I was thinking grind them down, but I know you have a lot of units.
Yeah, I have a lot of units as well. Grind is an interesting idea, though. It would have definitely been worth considering. But I think that R&D felt fairly safe as an 8 instead of a 4, and getting 3 full turns of grind is sometimes easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
But worth considering for sure. Crazy game, tons of fun. Great job, George. All right, moving on in to round 5, the last round of Turkey Wars for you. We are playing The Scouring, everyone's favorite mission, Lucas's favorite mission, I know. And Lucas is playing into Leviathan Nids. I do know a thing or two about Leviathan Nids, so I'll walk through this list real quick. We got the Reaper Flyer, and he's got the Feel No Pain. We got a Neuro with Guidance, but no Barb. Get yourself a Barb, brother. You're playing Leviathan. We got a Broodlord, who I think is terrible. Cannot stand that dude, but I totally understand it. I took him for a while as well because he seemed good. But man, does that feel like a waste of points these days when Sporocysts exist. He's got 10 Gargs. He's got a 9er of Warriors and 2 5ers. He's got a squad of Tyrant Guard, a squad of Zones, and a pair of Harpies. Usual complement, Synapse, and 4-up Invuln, both with Venoms, or anything more complicated than that?
Both Venoms, 1 Synapse, 1 Invuln, yep.
Sounds like a plan, and this looks like a nail-biter of a game. So why don't you walk us through this round 5, Lucas? How did you take down the Bugaboos?
Yeah, so the first thing to note about this game is that neither of us have really... I mean, we both scored well on our secondaries overall, but neither of us have like a set game plan coming in. Obviously, Nids are famous for not having the best secondaries and going for the I'm going to table a bitch plan, which often can work. In this game, he went with a little bit more defensive secondaries. He took Warp Ritual, he took Banners, and then obviously big game is free. My free one is Ruthless Tyranny, and then I took No Prisoners just because he has so many wounds all over the table. I figure I'm going to kill most of them over the course of the game. And then my last one was challenging. My options were Abhor, which was not amazing. Big Game wasn't amazing. Assassinate wasn't amazing. So I actually end up going with Fitting Challenge, which is kill his 3 most expensive units. And I get more points for killing them as soon as possible and on different turns. So these units are the 4-up Invuln Harpy, the Flyrant, and his 9-man warriors. My thinking was the Flyrant, if he ever whiffs on killing a knight and is right in front of me and doesn't get to overrun, that'll be a kill, so that'll be good. And obviously, that's not my plan, though, because obviously if that happens, I probably lost the game either way.
Ifs right there, brother, yeah.
Yeah, if it happens, I'll probably win the game anyway, so who really cares? But the Harpies, my goal is to take at least one of them out, if not both of them, on turn 1. That ended up happening, so that's where the 6 points came in on turn 1. And then at some point, I'm going to kill that 9-man warrior squad too. And that ended up happening on turn 3. It almost happened on turn 2. He had like 1 guy left with 2 wounds, but it ended up happening on turn 3. So I got a 10 on it, which was better than any of those other options I had available. So yeah, this game really does come down to the primary, just because our secondaries are... we both have an auto 15, and then the other ones are kind of haggard, sitting between like, a 6 and a 12. So yeah, it came down to the primary. He ended up going first. He flew his Harpies over. He went for an interesting play, which was move block me. I don't actually think that was the right call because I was able to get to where I wanted to get to anyway. And I have more shooting than him, so I wanted to play a passive game to begin with either way. So he flew over. He kind of like drove his Harpies up, turned them sideways so they presented the long end of their base to me, and then dropped a bunch of spore mines. So he kind of made this wall of like, you're going to take mortals and you can't live here and all that kind of stuff. And then shot my Big Knight and did a bunch of damage to her. This is not the Big Knight's best game or best matchup by any stretch of the imagination. She hates invulns, she hates transhuman, she hates mortal wounds, and she also doesn't like flyers. So she ended up dying in the first 2 turns, but the Armigers really picked up the slack and made some stuff happen. So he flew over and did that move block play. I responded by shooting the hell out of his harpies, and I killed one of them and got the other one down to 1 wound, which was a big bummer. First time in the tournament, well, actually not the first time, but the first time where it was very impactful to use the Herpatrax strat. So Herpatrax have their household-specific stratagem is Warping Presence, where you spend a CP at the end of the fight phase, and every unit within 6 inches on a 2-up takes a mortal, and on a 6 takes D3. So his 1 wound harpy, I was like, oh, boop, I rolled a 2, you're dead. So that finished off that harpy and cleared that move block screen that he made. I ended up giving ground on turn 1 and kind of backing up to make sure that his warriors weren't going to swamp me on turn 2 because they were kind of hiding behind the big cathedral piece of terrain that's in the middle of the table. And warriors are fast, but they can't cross the table from that all the way into my DZ in 1 turn, other than the 1 squad that's getting onslaught. So I gave a little bit of ground. I shot dead his move block play, and I moved up like a low health dog into the middle to get Ruthless Tyranny. He responds by sending his 9-man warriors up on my weak flank to beat up my Blood Shield Carnivore. He ends up rolling very well for the advance and passing the dread check and making the charge, which I set it up so that at least one of those failing would have made the charge very difficult for him, especially the dread check, because he doesn't have ignore charge bonds as his adaptive trait. He has heroics. And so unfortunately, he hit all 3. He rolled a 6 on the advance. His dread check was super low, even on the 3 dice. And then he just bossed the charge with like a 10 when he needed a 7. So unfortunate. He ended up crushing that the Blood Shield, which is a great tool in this matchup because of all the invulns that he has. He's great at just like picking up 3 or 4 warriors or, smashing the Hive Tyrant in the face. So unfortunate to lose him right away. And I also lose the Big Knight as well at that point in time. So I'm down 2 Armigers and the Big Knight. But I do have his 9-man warrior squad in the open, in my DZ. So I focus them down on that turn. And this is the turn I got them down to 1 warrior with 2 wounds left. My goal was to shut them down for the purpose of fitting challenge, get another round of Ruthless Tyranny. At this point, we're just trading resources, and I want to make sure that his banners is low, and we're going parity on primary, so that hopefully I can win by secondaries just a little bit, and maybe deny some primary points later in the game, especially because I'm going second. Get a little primary advantage at the end there. So yeah, I get those warriors down super low. Obviously, there's Synapse, so no leadership check involved, but I was surprised how well my shooting did into warriors. The 5-up invuln isn't that big of a deal. They have a 3-up armor and cover, so chain cannons are putting them on the invuln. -1 to wound is obviously very annoying, but I still have 80-something shots that are wounding on 4s with reroll 1s, and he's got 5-ups, and you roll a little under average, and all of a sudden I'm picking up whole warriors at a go. And obviously Tzeentch guy is really great as well, because he's flat 3 damage. It's not worth investing 2 CP to make the 3 damage into 2. So I think he took out like 2 of them by himself, which was pretty sweet. Tzeentch, by the way, the Armiger, probably my favorite of all of the baby knights. Super good, pays for himself every game in terms of CP regen, just reliable couple kills every single turn. And then once he gets that auto 6 when he's exalted, he's very much a pain to remove, because when it comes down to scrapping in the late game on turn 3 or 4, when everyone has just a couple of assets left, and someone's like, yeah, I'll throw my Inferno Pistols into your guy, or I'll put these like big high damage attacks into your knight, and you just flip a save to a 6 and say, no, I don't want to. Really awesome to have that and keep him alive. And also, if he's not getting shot at, you can flip a wound to a 6 every turn, which, because he killed one of the Harpies on turn 1, I was doing to those warriors just to force extra saves through. So that was really good. His turn 3 starts, and he's kind of got his castle of the more elite infantry still behind that I'm really bummed I don't have a picture of this game because the terrain was really interesting. He's still behind the cathedral, the big cathedral piece in the middle of the table with like his Tyrant Guard, his Zoanthropes, his Venomthropes. And I realized that I have to start coming around the flank of that building and denying those primary points if I want to have a shot in this game, just because his banners are all back up, are all up there. And I would love to start shutting those down. I have a couple of hilarious whiffs in a row where like an Armiger comes in, tries to punch the Broodlord, fails to do anything at all, and the Broodlord just like slaps back repeatedly. Oh, man, that Broodlord was such a pain. And because he stayed alive, there were a couple turns where I was trying to deny the 4 points for holding the midfield for him on the primary. And I just refused to kill him, which meant that he got more points than I was anticipating. Turns out a 4-up Invuln Broodlord, who's transhuman, is really hard for my 5-attack Armigers to kill. We're really riding the point flip train.
Not transhuman anymore, baby.
Not anymore, but at the time, that dude just refused to get wounded. But yeah, I ended up finishing off that last warrior on turn 3 for more fitting points. One thing you can really do against Tyranids is tax their CP by forcing the Flyrant to act every turn. And in particular, a Herpatrax dog that's at full health, this is especially true now, by the way, that the mortals from the Reaper is capped. If you invest -1 damage and they haven't done any damage to your dog, they mathematically cannot kill it. I guess there's the toes as well. They are very unlikely to kill you, and that would prevent an overrun. Because my dogs are 14 wounds. There was many times where he's like, well, I got to make sure this dog dies or you're going to kill my Flyrant next turn. So I have to invest a CP in extra attacks and for overrun. So it's like 2 CP for my Flyrant to kill this one war dog. And I was doing that every single turn with a dog on my like left flank objective.
And even doing that, like if he just rolls like 2 2s to wound, he's just boned.
Yeah, exactly. So it's super on the fence whether or not the Flyrant accomplishes his objective and kills a dog every turn. So he ended up hitting like the positive side of that coin flip and just barely getting it done each time. But yeah, definitely taxed him a lot of CP. My Armiger army on the right flank just keeps pushing up, starts denying that objective, starts taking down banners, and eventually I'm able to, because once I've killed his 9-man warriors and his harpies, he has basically no shooting. He's camping behind that midfield cathedral ruin and sending his Flyrant forward to deny my left home field objective. I'm pushing up on the right and starting to shoot into him. So he realizes like, oh crap, I'm going to start losing my guys because he's coming around behind the building and he's starting to shoot at me and I don't have any cover. So we start fighting then because he realizes he has to do something. And that's the point where I actually turn the game on its head because I kill his Zoanthropes. Venomthropes aren't that big of a deal for me. They're AP1. They don't work against vehicles. So I focus them down too. And then at that point, he's just got like a couple Tyrant Guard and the Tyrant left. Ended up being super close because we went roughly parity on primary. My primary denial plan didn't work because that fucking Broodlord refused to die.
Dude, you went exactly equal on primary. You beat this guy by 3 secondary points. Holy smokes.
Yeah, and mostly that was his banners. I chose the right time to start pushing forward and tearing down his banners, and that ended up winning me the game. Yeah, it's super, super scary to play against Tyranids with Chaos Knights because usually the way you beat Tyranids is having better secondaries than them, and then just like delaying the game and, you know, making sure you're not getting tabled and keeping it at a reasonable pace. Can't do that as well when I have nothing fast of my own to go through a wall and initiate the fight against them because I'm playing Knights. I just can't go through walls. So definitely a game that was right on the edge of, you know, flipping to be a win for him. Ended up being 80-77 for me. Really fun game and a great way to go with a bang against Leviathan. It was a challenging matchup for Chaos Knights, and I'm glad I got to play it one last time. And it was so close. Had a lot of fun.
Nice, man. That is, whew. How did the you talked about what the 9-man warriors were doing. How are the 5-man warrior squads performing into this? They're an interesting take that I'm seeing less of in Leviathan armies these days.
One of them was camping on the center objective, providing OBSEC, being an inch from the wall, being annoying to deal with, so that I ended up killing them on like turn 4 when I came around the bend of that cathedral and started shooting in at them because they die really quickly to chain cannons when they don't have catalyst. And the other one was chilling on his upper right objective, just with a banner hanging out there trying to delay me. But with very little support, they ended up dying to armigers really quickly. Warriors aren't a great matchup into armigers because I can -1 damage. And strength 7, or I guess they have strength 8 because of clans.
Adrenals. Yeah.
But yeah, just going in, hitting on 3s, winning on 3s. I save on 5s, 1 damage. Like half health one night, big whoop, right? And then I punch one guy back and flip the objective. So the 2x5 warriors weren't the biggest deal. The squad of 9 with all the buffs is definitely scary, but it was very reassuring to see that I could deal with them relatively effectively just because I have so many shots. I don't really care all that much about the transhuman.
Yeah, I'm just curious if, like, obviously Leviathan's been changed. If you would have had a much more difficulty dealing with this if he put his 19 warriors into 2 9s and then, like, sack the Broodlord to buff out the 1 wound to a 3.
Maybe. I definitely think the bigger squad would have been more effective because he would have had a second threat. I also think his like macro game approach was a little bit off. I don't think he wins the like we slowly trade. Your Flyrant kills a dog. My dogs push up and kill a bunch of warriors. I don't think that play works for him. I think he wants to like come into my DZ, pin me up against walls, make sure I can't move to all the places I want to, even if it means sacrificing all of his warriors in the first 3 turns. I'm going to win this game because I can move faster than him with my entire army. Like, I get here that he is Onslaught, and he can be faster than me in one place, but in every other place, I'm faster than him. And he definitely left a lot of opportunities on the table in terms of pinning me against walls, limiting my movement, and I think that's how he could have definitely locked this game down.
Gotcha. Very nice. Well, congratulations, finishing 4-1 feels real solid. On a good run at Turkey Wars. I'm gonna jump over and actually I'm gonna grab my. I finally got a photo for this last game in there. So give me like 2 seconds. I'll be able to pull up second version of the same set of slides. But we're playing round 6 of SoCal here. We're playing Prios, secure precious artifacts. Whatever you want to. It's Prios, people. It's Prios. And I have not been having a great SoCal. I am super burned out. I am 2-3 going into round 6. And I get to play into none other than our boy from where are we? From Aegis Games, Nick Villegas, good friend of the show. We've talked all the time, but we had never actually played. He just told me, by the way, Death Leaper has 7 attacks. I could have sworn he only has 6. I've been playing him with 6 for the last several tournaments. He's so good.
Read your rules, people.
Yeah, it's deserving because I don't know if you remember this, but in 8th edition rules, I was playing my Lictor with 4 attacks when he only had 3 for like 6 months, and it never matters because Lictor didn't do anything back in the day. But like this is my penance, is that I had to trade that for Death Leaper's attacks.
Very funny.
Anyway, you want to run us through Nick's particular flavor of Leviathan that I got to play into here?
Yep. He's got a Neurothrope, I presume, with direct guidance, Reaper Flyrant.
Yeah.
Yep. 9 warriors, 3 warriors. We got Death Leaper. We got 3 Tyrant Guard, 3 Venom Throws, 3 Zone Throps, so the standard support mid-sized bugs. 2 Harpies, one of them which has Barb Stranglers for a little bit of a cheaper shooting, and a Sporocyst as well. So he's got half of the Mortal Wounds package, still's got the 2 Flyers, and then a whole bunch of Warriors. This looks like a very solid Leviathan list.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Nick and I talk a lot, and it was funny. At Turkey Wars the previous weekend, he was like, man, I'm just not getting it done. And, what do I need? And I'm like, you need a Sporocyst, dude. Get a Sporocyst. Get rid of your Broodlord and take a Sporocyst. Also, you need OBSEC 5 on Death Leaper. Stop not doing that. And also, you need the Resonance Barb. Stop failing your casts on 6s. And he did all those things, and he came back and said, hey, here's my stuff. And I said, oh, snap. Wish I hadn't told you to do all that. Because this game just got a lot harder. So here's a photo. He actually took this photo, so there's a great shot of my crotch if you want to look at that. So we're playing on the urban table again. We're playing Prios. And man, this game was nonsense. Nick Villegas, he was on Team Aegis. So if you go back to our teams episode, especially on YouTube, you can see more pictures of his awesome Tyranids. They're all like super converted. They're like underwater warp corrupted nonsense. They're all super cool. The pictures from this angle don't do them justice because they're really dark, but it's a super cool underwater theme. Yeah, so we're playing Pryos. We both decide to pull our second objectives closer and our opponent's safe objectives further. Center gets stuck there, and this is the setup. Man, this game is utter nonsense. I have to go first, which I don't love because obviously it's much better to go second in this kind of a mirror situation, and I am very concerned about his damage output. But I figure I've got better he's got a lot of obstacle in the warriors, but I've got better scoring than he does. He's got to come get involved. If I go back here, you should be able to see the score sheets. He's taking no prisoners, obviously, interrogation and cranial feasting. I'm taking behind enemy lines, retrieve Nephilim data, and psychic interrogation. So he's slightly better at interrogation than I am denying, and I'm slightly better at casting because I've got the Magus who can run around and do stuff without, freaking out too much. Cranial Feasting is a bad secondary. It's melee assassinate, basically, with a couple of bonus points. It's okay. I don't really recommend it because I can avoid it pretty well if he wants to, because he has to get to me in melee, and then no prisoners is obviously really good. So I think to myself that I have a secondary advantage here. Turns out I'm wrong, but I think I have a secondary advantage here. So let's just play the primary game, right? And what that looks like to me is I need to bait him out, draw him in, and then pummel him down so that my stuff in his backfield ends up getting to mess around a little bit longer than it probably should. So I turn one. Let me go back to the photo here. This is deployment. Turn one, I slap every single buff imaginable on my Raveners and run them into that center box. Now, the double-decker L buildings, the ones that are on sort of in the heart of my DZ and on his not-so-safe objective, those are first-floor blocking. But the other two wonky triangle L things and the box in the middle, those windows are wide open. So I'm like, all right, you're going to get some shots at me, but I think if I throw all the buffs on my Raveners and put Catalyst on them, you're going to need to either walk something meaningful out to stand on that objective, or what I really want you to do is commit some melee threats on to make sure the Raveners go away. Because if you just shoot the Raveners and you don't kill the Raveners, and a Ravener survives, I have the CP, I'll auto-pass, I'll pick up a 12, I'll equalize the primary, because you're going second, obviously, you're up 4, and then if I hammer your primary just a little bit, you're going to be in a really bad spot if my secondaries are better than yours, and you're going to have to throw yourself at me, and that's what I want him to do. I want him to throw himself at me. Nick says, I bet. I refuse. Not going to happen. Here's a bunch of guns. What are you going to do about it? I'm not leaving my DZ. And I'm like, oh dear. I did not want this to be a staring contest. I really wanted you to commit so I could kill all your stuff. But he doesn't. And he kills the Raveners to a wound. Just perfect. And I'm like, oh, man. Alright. That's fine. You do your thing. You're playing smart. You're playing back. That's cool. I posture myself real hard. I have of my big squad of Tyrant Guard up on the top, or what looks like the bottom right here was my top left from my perspective. They line up on the outside of that wall so that he's not getting to me in a single turn. It'll take him 2 turns to get to me, so he can just take shots and I'm in cover. Tyrant Guard are immune to Tyranid shooting, is just a fun fact. In case you didn't know, Tyranid shooting is a bunch of AP2 and AP3. Tyrant Guard have a 0-up save. They're T6, so all the Death Spitters wound them on 5s, and the big stuff wounds them on 3s. It's not a good time. You throw Catalyst on them, and they're just good to rock and roll for days. So they do that, and I'm similarly postured to blow up in the middle. I keep dropping just piles of spores behind that green building. I'm like, you cannot come into the middle. Putting 12 spores a turn there. If you come into the middle, you're going to die. It's just not good. And he's shooting him and whittling him away a little bit, but so it goes. I drop in turn 2, drop the drill squad, and I trade them for 3 warriors, which is such a bad trade. But it doesn't matter because they're not actually trading for 3 warriors. They're trading for his objective. Because the 3 warriors are the only obsec on it. Kill them, take the objective. All right, primary is equalized. I held him to a 4. Great. Make sure I'm looking at the right notes for this game. That's not SoCal. That's SoCal. Hold him to a 4. Cool. Following turn. Now this is where stuff gets nonsensy because I'm like very in tune with the minutia of bug rules. He has just his Neurothrope sitting on his home field objective and like 12 Spore Mines. He's just been putting them there from his Sporocyst. Cool. Problem is, when you deep strike, you measure 3 inches horizontally and you don't measure from mines because mines don't block deep strikes. You just measure from the dudes. And secondly, the mines blow up 3 inches, not horizontally, but 3 inches diagonally. And that second floor of his ruin there is in his DZ and is on his objective. So I am able to bring in my 3-inch deep striking squad of OBSEC, which he has no OBSEC on that objective, on his objective, outside of range of the mines, in order to R&D and take it with OBSEC. And that is a problem. I hold him to 4 again. He's not in love with that. So he sends the Death Leaper over, who is, of course, OBSEC 5. Deathy goes in, and Deathy only, like I said, we were playing him with 6 attacks, so that was what I thought he had. He actually has 7. Doesn't end up making a huge difference here, because Deathy whiffs hard. He's like, all right, I got to kill you in melee. He doesn't want to do any chip damage to me in advance, because he wants to get his cranial feasting points for killing me, my Sergeant in melee. That's a point. So he runs in melee, swings, and only kills 3 dudes. Right? Because he's only strength 7, so he's hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. That's dice for you. 2 of them end up slipping out. Math is like if he only has 6 attacks, which again we played wrong, but he played it that way. He gets 5 hits, like 3 wounds. That's math. You throw in one more attack, it doesn't change it all that much. Like it's not crazy. So my 2 dudes survive and they pass their leadership check because they didn't roll a 6, and they're like, all right, Deathy, that was a mistake, because Deathy then pulls himself out of combat. Or I pull Deathy out of combat. He doesn't want to consolidate because he doesn't want to take random attacks for no reason. And I say, that's fine. I'll stay right where I am on your objective in your deployment zone. And then I have to get freaky because I need to deny more points. So we do 2 things. We send the Flyrant into Deathy, which is the most terrifying shit ever, because I can't use stratagem. So I'm raw dogging 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, you're rolling 1s, wounding on 2s because I threw because I have +1 to wound spell on him, and like better kill him. He's got 7 wounds and a 4-up invuln, and I get it done and I get out of there. Whew, we're okay. All right, feels great. So that's that. Simultaneously, I picked up a squad of Gargs with the intention that they would try to drop in the back and try to go for like an R&D kind of thing. And then I realized, wait a second, no, he has no OBSEC on his on that same objective that I threw drills at earlier, because the warriors are all posturing for the center here. They're all trying to line up shots and stuff. Ooh, and there are Spore Mines on that objective, as well as some Tyrant Guard and stuff. And like I said, you don't deep strike outside of 9 of the Spore Mines. So, and I don't remember if it was Nick or Lucas, one of you two pointed this out. I think it may have been Nick, pointed this out to me initially. You don't deep strike outside of 9 Spore Mines, but you can still charge the Spore Mines. So I drop out 9 away from the Tyrant Guard, which is within 5 of the Spore Mines. And then I charge such that only 1 or 2 mines get to blow up into me. I don't mind taking a little bit of damage. And then I don't need to pile or console anywhere. I'm on the objective with OBSEC now. And turn 4, I hold him to a 0. Spice. And Nick continues to refuse to collapse on the center because he's worried that he'll be able to output a lot of damage. Reasonable. He probably could have afforded to commit that turn, but he decides against it. And at the end of the day, and then on his, obviously on his 5, he collapses, takes the center, moves on with his life. And at the end of the day, the final score, primary is 45-35 in my favor, because obviously I'm just getting 8s and the full 15 for Prios. He gets 4-4-4 and the 15 for Prios, so he ends up, or 4-4-12 and the 15 for Prios. So he's pulling a 35 to 10-point primary advantage to me. And then on secondaries, the ritual, or the interrogates are so annoying because he keeps like hard rolling 10s and 11s, not with a 3d6, not with a plus, just hard rolling 10s and 11s to cast. And I keep rolling 5s, and he's denying me and I'm not denying him. So I only end up scoring 6 points on interrogation, whereas he scores 12, which is what throws my primary math real bad. I only pull a 6 on behind because I send the Gargoyles in for that primary denial play instead, which is better. I also could have scored more on behind. I picked up my Magus, but I realized that if I drop my Magus in the backfield, I pick up 2 points on behind, but he then picks up 3 points on Cranial because he'll just go killer in melee guaranteed. So that was not the move there. Final score 75-71. Absolute wild game. Fantastic way to finish up SoCal, which was, like I said, it was an exhausting weekend. Yeah. Whew.
It's like a really, really cagey kind of slow-paced game, which sounds really interesting. It seems like his critical downfall was not defending his priority heavily enough. It looks like he's just got a bunch of control ones.
Yeah.
On the primary, whereas you kind of got your priority for free, which gave you 8s. Because I'm just seeing 8s across the board for you, and then it seems like he was just holding his home field, basically.
He was holding his, well, it was back and forth which objective he was losing. But yeah, he needed to get more OBSEC on his objectives to prevent me from getting these little steal plays off, because it was an issue. I did kill both Harpies, by the way. Both of them with Spore Mines, which I found highly entertaining.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Spore Mines go burr. So that was fun. Bunch of nonsense. Very timid game. He totally had the chance to win the staring contest, which was crazy. It was really that tight. Just cover a couple more objectives. But yeah, that's the way to beat me with Leviathan. I am so used to Levy players just full rushing, and I know how to deal with that. But a Levy player who can sit back and take shots, it's a bit of a challenge. So props to Nick for pulling that off.
Nice.
Whew. All right.
That was a lot of games of Warhammer.
Yeah, it was a full 10 games. And the downside of picking only my favorites to talk about is that every game is my favorite. So there was a lot going on with picking best 5 out of 11. So great stuff, man. How are we feeling right now? The game's in kind of a crazy spot. We got a couple weeks off. We're going to Atomic City in a couple of weeks, playing an RTT tomorrow. Getting lots of practice in. Where are you feeling about Chaos Knights? Kind of what's the state of Lucas and the state of the faction?
I'm enjoying playing them. I'm gonna keep playing them. Right now, we're doing a lot of games on WTC terrain, just because, well, I personally feel more interested in it, and we can definitely talk more about the terrain transition another time. But I personally am of the opinion that player place terrain in the Pacific Northwest, anyways. Like, I haven't gone to FLG events in a while, so I definitely haven't solved FLG player placed. But the kind we have up here, which is mostly like bird player placed L's, Portland RTT player placed terrain, that's all solved in my head and is frankly boring as hell. Because basically what ends up happening is both players have 3 ruins, a forest, and a crater, and whoever wins the defender roll-off, if they're playing a melee army, slaps a big L in the middle, which is completely interactable. Or if they're a shooting army, slaps a crate in the middle, and that's completely uninteractable. And the game is basically just, did you win defender and get 2 unsafe objectives / safe objectives, depending on if you're playing melee or shooting? If yes, then you're at a huge advantage and your opponent has to do something crazy. If no, then you're not. And I've gotten incredibly bored with that. Every single game it operates the exact same way. I'm just a little bit sick of it, to completely honest. So WTC terrain has been a breath of fresh air. It varies the engagement so much. We always hear that like the player place terrain is supposed to vary the engagements and make every game feel different. If you really want that experience, play on WTC terrain, because the way that all the tables kind of interact, there's so many different setups that every game feels different, and then even the same game or even like different matchups on the same table can feel different because there's just so much going on. And all the pieces are so much fun too. The WTC has these circular grates that are light and dense, but not difficult. And that piece of terrain seems ridiculously strong because it's only defensive buffs without any like -2 to move. But at the end of the day, like it benefits everyone and it makes it super easy to move through because there's not like trees in the way and stuff like that. I don't know, man. I'm really in love with WTC terrain right now, and I'm really enjoying playing games on it. Chaos Knights aren't the strongest on it just because there are so many choke points, and it's hard to get places without the infantry keyword or fly, of which I have neither. So it's really easy to just move block myself and get kind of punished by a really experienced player in that way. But I'm having so much more fun, and I'm learning the most important thing is I'm learning more about my army and the way I need to play the game and my strengths and weaknesses as a player. So much more than I was on player place terrain, where every game was basically, oh, I went first and slapped a crate in the middle. Haha. Good luck, Marines. Haha. Or whatever I happen to be playing against. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying playing Chaos Knights, and I'm going to continue to do so. I just want to enjoy it on a different terrain format for a little while, because player placed is a solution to a problem, but it's not a very good solution to a problem, and I'm just kind of sick of it at this point. But yeah, I'm also hearing a lot of orc success stories lately. I don't actually know what happened in round 4 with Sean Naden, but I know he was undefeated with a whole crap load of points yesterday at Kansas City. I also know Ben Jurek won SoCal with Goffs, which is incredibly exciting. Kind of the old archetype too, which was Kill Rigs and Beast Hog, Squig Hog Riders, and all that kind of stuff. And he actually had Gaz as well. Maybe that list is really good on FLG terrain. I'm not super sure. I definitely was not having success with those kind of units, but massive props to Ben. I know he's a really good player, and to see Orcs win kind of gets my my little green heart pounding again, dude. I'm ready for some WoW. So yeah, I might be trying a couple more games with Orcs in the future if I have the balls. But I definitely some Chaos Knights and maybe some Orcs in the near future for me.
Very cool. Update, by the way, Naden won his round 4 into Brett Perkins and then played Manny Chima round 5. It says the round timer is over. It says they're also playing on table 999, which is like weird. I don't know. But a lot of the... Oh, I think round 5 is just starting is probably what it is. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so Nate, so yeah, very cool. I'm largely with you about the state of the game right now, feeling very solved on player plays. But I think that has a lot less to do with player plays not being great and a lot more to do with how freaking tired I am of 6 of the 9 missions having the same objective layout.
Yes.
Right? I think that when I play player placed on the 5, I'm like, yeah, do the thing. Cool, whatever. But when I play player placed on Tide of Conviction or Data Scry, I have no complaints about it.
Yeah, like, those are the best 2 missions in the packet, in my opinion, which is weird because they're the only 2 hold 3 ones. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm at this weird spot where you definitely weigh in and tell me if you agree or disagree. But I'm sick of the mission packet, but I like the general composition of what armies are strong right now. It's like good variety and like a lot of different play styles are strong. Mm-hmm. But the missions we're playing on are fucking boring as hell because 6 of them are the same mission, basically.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the meta is fairly good. I think the meta could use a couple more guns. I think too many people are getting away with not being ready for guns. I think it's part of why Tau is so strong right now, is because they're like, it's basically Tau. Votan are going to mix that up for sure, but they're also not just a gun line. Knights are solid. I think that if like if Eldar guns were a little bit better, I think that would be good for the meta. Or if something else, a little bit of fast shooting. I think people are getting away with a little bit too much for there not being guns right now, myself included. But overall, I agree the meta's in a really nice spot. But yeah, the pack is terrible, and I think that player placed exacerbates the sameness, right? Because like you said, the good thing about player placed is that the actual good thing is that it doesn't need to have infinite different maps, right? Like there's 9 different WTC maps for every single mission format, right? I think that the thing that's really nice about that is that there are different maps for different format. Like, if you just play on different missions that have objectives in different places, I don't think the player place being samey gets annoying. Especially if we could de-emphasize the center a little bit and focus a little bit more on flank play. So,
agreed.
I agree that given the current pack, I've been loving WTC as well. It's a lot of fun to play on, and it some interesting new challenges to solve. It's nice to solve that level of problem again, right? Because player place is the thing that you solve once and then you're done with it, right? You know where your stuff wants to go. Whereas the WCC stuff, because there's so many of them, until we have infinite experience with the things which I'm sure only the very top echelon of people playing on that terrain set have, there's a lot of stuff you have to figure out differently every time. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, there's some 70 or 80 something like layouts, and then a lot of them are shared between the missions, so they obviously look different depending on which mission you're playing. Man, that is so much fun. There's
Yeah.
So far every board I've played on has been like, oh, this is a unique set of challenges and strengths with that my army have on this terrain, and I can't wait to try to explore that.
Yeah, very cool. For me, faction-wise right now, I am still gunning for best in faction forces, despite my terrible performance at SoCal. That was a big missed opportunity for points. Not the end of the world. We got plenty more events going on in this season. But I'm having a lot of fun with Mono GSC. So we'll see how that shakes out in the future. I got a lot of hobby to do if I'm going to get my GSC stuff on the table. I'm getting like very locked in with this list that I know what it does. I know how it does in places. I don't think it needs any changes right now. I haven't walked out of any of my losses and been like, man, my list just couldn't handle that. I've walked out and been like, man, I'm a freaking idiot. That was really foolish of me. So that's a good place to be in because it means that I'm happy with that. I don't need to go change a whole bunch, but we'll see, man. We're rocking and rolling at this point, trying to figure out what we can. Yeah. So if you made it this far, 2.5 hours in, thank you so much for listening to us. If you're not on our Patreon somehow and you listen to all 2.5 hours of this show, I don't know what you're doing. Come join us on Discord. Keep the conversation going 24/7. Check us out on YouTube. Check out BitReps. Check out all the good stuff. Buy our merch. bestintabletop.com/store. Guns are for chumps. You heard it here first. You can buy my t-shirt that says it. If you like our little logo over in the corner over there, you can get that on a t-shirt too. I like that one a lot. It's comfy. The shirts are good. They're really good. No one's bought the water bottles yet. I haven't either because I like my water bottle. But someone needs to buy one of those and tell me how it is because I bet.
Get on that, you idiots.
Yeah, go give us more money. That's what we need.
Send us your dollar.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with the full crew, as far as I can tell, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, sweet.
And then the week after that is Atomic City. We go into another GT.
Oh my gosh, already. Cool. Well, if you got anything in particular that you want you'd like some more coverage of hit us up on Discord or just message us on Facebook or something. We won't tell. But we'll figure out what we're going to talk about. But with all that being said and done, thank you so much for listening. I've been Tyler.
And I'm still Lucas.
And we'll see you next time.
Adios, amigos.